So we watched Impact, everybody. As noted, it was a pretty darn good show.
Mm-hmm.
It opened with a hell of a segment. My only nitpick is that they did a video of Robert Roode's family expressing shock and shame and disbelief at the horrid way he's been acting over the past month. My only nitpick is that they aired a short version here and a long version later. And there was, we had Granny earlier talking about spoilers. This was like a spoiler for the longer segment. Because I thought when the first one aired, this is the best thing TNA had ever done. And then when I saw the longer segment later, I was like, well, why didn't they air this one first? But
to build up to it. It was a tease.
That was a nitpick, as I said. But this is just phenomenal. You had Robert Roode's father, Bob Roode.
Yeah.
You had his wife, his mother, his sister.
I wish they'd called him B. Roode.
And his family friend. They were all ashamed and confused and hurt. His wife said she had to try to explain to kids why daddy is cheating, and then try to explain to them that cheating is wrong. And then Robert Roode's friend looked at the camera, and former friend had said, Roode's former friend, and he said, he's just a selfish person.
You know, aside from his old friend that thought he was a selfish person, every single person involved here, the mom, the dad, the wife, I mean, this was better acting than like 99.9% of the stuff you see on Impact or Raw.
Yes.
And in fact, with the exception of the friend, all three of the aforementioned people were even better than Bobby Roode. Because, you know, Bobby Roode was fine, but when you watch him, it was like, well, here's a guy playing pro wrestling bad guy. You watch the family and you're like, man, I feel bad for Bob Roode. They were good. they were very good.
They were, their lives have been shattered.
Mm-hmm.
So Sting came out. He called out Roode. I'm just going to skip to the end. AJ and Jeff Hardy came out, and Sting booked them all on the three-way tonight.
I wished I'd skipped to the end watching it.
There was some dialogue in here. It made no sense. It led to that match, but it was dumb.
I have no idea what was going on in this segment.
They exchanged words. They said like literally nothing until one guy came out. He said something of no value. Then Hardy came out. He said nothing, and Sting booked a match.
Great. Three-way, by the way, which is a bigger match than the match they're doing at the pay-per-view, which is just AJ versus
Roode.
It
was a non-title
for
match.
The title. Sure.
So is that.
But Jeff Hardy was involved.
Jeff Hardy is involved. We had clips of earlier today. All the girls were standing outside freezing to death in their robes. You recall last week, Karen booked a lingerie match, and she was upset with the lingerie the girls wore. So this week she's going to pick their outfits. And she had 6 cars for the wrestlers there they were going to wash. She ordered them all to wash the cars in their bikinis. So Madison stepped forward, confidently, boldly, daringly threw off her robe, revealing her fine physique in a bikini. And they all got to work, and not much here happened, except that in the background I noticed Tracy Brooks was just standing there looking like she had no idea what was going on.
And she was not required to strip down in this particular segment.
Well, I guess Karen, even in this incident, she does not want Tracy to disrobe. She still wants her to cover up. There was more to come here. Hardy was cutting a promo about the main event when Jarrett interrupted. They bickered for a bit. Jarrett attacked him, whipped his ass. Then Hardy made a comeback. As usual, it went on too long.
Yep, par for the course.
Eric Bischoff met with Bully Ray.
I do like what a passionate man Jeff Jarrett is. He will not give up his cause.
No.
He just won't quit.
He's good. I'm on his side in this one. Bully Ray met with Eric Bischoff. Bischoff just called him Bully. Bully, thank God you're here. He was upset that his kid may turn out to be a bigger star than him. Ray said, just very nonchalant, just give me the word, I'll take him out. They wanted to talk about Abyss. Here, Bully was very concerned. He repeated that he put a guy through a table, and the guy just stood up, and they didn't know what to do. So Eric said they should try to recruit him into Immortal again.
Bully has not only lost a tremendous amount of weight, but he is now all jacked up.
His arms are huge.
Astonishing.
It is amazing.
I never thought I'd see this. Just crazy what a man can do with just proper diet and weight training.
Well, he's been hanging out with Scott Steiner, no doubt picking up some tips.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah.
Probably sharing protein shakes. You can't do that.
Well, nutrition's an important part of a wrestler's regimen. So the girls are washing cars in their bikinis.
This was the best segment ever.
Go ahead.
I'll tell the story. So they're out there in their bikinis and shrieking, of course. Shrieking, and it's the most annoying thing you've ever seen. And Tara Tara strides up to Gail Kim, who of course is a heel. And Gail's kind of the ringleader of this. Gail and Madison.
Tara at this point is still in her robe.
Yeah, since Karen had left. So Tara strides up and she says, Gail, I just can't believe it. I can't believe what you're making these girls do. It's just ridiculous. And Gail says, listen, Tara, if I had your body your age, I'd be happy to flaunt it. And Tara looks her dead in the eye, and then she calmly says, you're right. I do have a great body. And she takes off her robe. She flaunts her ass, and she goes to happily wash the car. Best part.
She grabbed a sponge, she walked over to clean the wheel, and blatantly turned over with her ass straight into the camera.
This was so awesome. Like, usually they write stuff, and it's like, sometimes it's kind of clever, sometimes it's not. This was like, I couldn't even believe it was funny, and the individuals involved, Tara just was like, this was the best moment of her career. I mean, just the absolute perfect reaction and the perfect response and the perfect tone of voice in the perfect segment. This was just the greatest. I love this with all my heart.
On top of that, well, at the end of this segment, actually, there's the more to this. After Tara bent over to clean the hubcap, ODB walked up, talked to Karen. Karen said tonight ODB had a street fight with Mickie James. And if Mickie got hurt, not even if ODB won, just if Mickie got hurt, then ODB would be the top contender. Mm-hmm. And the third thing about this segment is that they did not focus on her or, they did not overdo it. But every once in a while, Brooke Tessmacher would pass by the camera. Mm. And when this happens, it's like time just freezes.
Unfortunately, it doesn't. She keeps walking.
Yeah, eventually she moves on, but Christ. So.
Genetic marvel. Or something.
It's a marvel. It's marvelous. Inc. versus Mexican America versus Devon and Pope in a three-way tag match for the title shot at the pay-per-view. It was a fun TV match. They got a little time, not a lot. Mexican America they had the heat on, I think, Pope for a while. Devon got a hot tag. He ran wild. He was beating up both Mexicans. Then Jesse blind tagged himself in, tried to take out Devon, but Devon dodged a charge and pinned him with a spine buster. So you had Devon beating up not two men, but three. Mm-hmm. So by the end here, you had, well, it was really one man, but one team that had earned decisively the title shot. Good.
Two men who hate each other, last time I checked.
Well, that part sucks.
And just totally dropped in storyline.
You can never tell. Yeah, they're friends this week. But for this segment, good.
I can't say too much about this because I don't really have it confirmed, but I'll just say this, that everyone knows the whole deal with Jesse Neal. And they supposedly want him to go to Ohio Valley, move to Louisville, apparently on his own dime, and just start training there. And, of course, he didn't want to, and it was quite the discussion about this situation last week. I don't think he's going to have to worry about that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Aries came out, cut a promo. He was talking about how he planned to revitalize the X Division, and he had done this. But the problem was now he had beaten everybody. There were no challengers left. They should just rename it the A-Double Division and be done with it. Kid Kash interrupted, said Aries had screwed him at the pay-per-view and in their tag match. Aries said, I'm not a kid. I'm a seasoned vet and a world champion. You can't talk to me like that. Kid said he used to be the champion. And finally, Aries says, fine, I'll put my belt down here. You shake my hand. You got a title match. And Kid Kash thought about it, and he went for a handshake. And then they both cheap-shotted each other.
Yeah.
That was creative.
I'm excited for this match.
Oh, yeah.
I may be the only person on the earth.
No, I can't imagine why.
All right. I'm excited for this match because I've watched Aries and Kash for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're not afraid to
they will be physical.
Yeah, they'll I'm sure, I think, Aries he's had some confrontations here and there, so is Kash. And I hope they beat on each other.
Oh, they will.
I'm excited.
There will be violence.
Yeah.
And plus, Aries he's a fantastic cowardly heel, and Kash is a great bully.
Yeah.
Aries takes a great beating. Kash disses one out. What's wrong with this?
Nothing.
Yeah. So this will be fun. We had a shot of Gunner going through a mall looking for Garrett Bischoff. This is foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing the new greatest segment in history of Impact.
This is better than Tara.
Let me talk about it.
AJ cut a promo on Roode. It didn't matter.
Doesn't matter. So Gunner is looking for Garrett. and he goes into the gym that apparently Garrett trains at. He walks in there, and there's a random big musclehead, and he goes, "Where's Garrett?" And the musclehead's like, "You can't just come in here and look for a guy or something like that." And I'm like, why? It's a gym, for Christ's sake. But anyway, so the fella that says he doesn't know where he is, so Gunner pie faces him backwards over a bench. This was when I knew this was going to be golden. So he finds another musclehead, clearly an indie worker, and he beats his ass as well. So then another guy runs up, and Gunner whips him at his ass and throws him into a heavy bag. Then he finds another guy who's in a ring, and so he goes in there and gives him a pro wrestling beating. Then a fifth guy shows up outside, and he gets hard clotheslined and choked out with a strap. And then a sixth guy runs up to him, and Gunner puts him in a Kimura and lays him out and is screaming, "Tell Garrett that Gunner is coming for him."
Yeah.
And I know Gunner's a heel.
Not anymore.
He's the biggest babyface in the world to me.
Not anymore.
He went into this gym and he beat the hell out of 6 men all by himself. This was like a 70s martial arts movie where there's like a guy and 6 dudes attack him. But of course, they don't all swarm him at the same time.
No.
You know, one guy comes and gets his ass kicked, and then that's the cue for the second guy to run in and get his ass kicked. And they run in one at a time, and they get their ass kicked one at a time. It's exactly what this was. And I loved every single second of this. Gunner is like, when Gunner was just a security geek, you know, he was just a geek. But now he's like a guy, and they keep putting him in situations where he's with, like, real legit indie goofballs, and he just comes across as like, this man's a main eventer to me.
This man is a star.
Mm-hmm.
This man is an ass kicker. This man is nothing to be fucked with. This
segment was a winner.
It got to...
And it was 100 times better than Mrs. beating of John Morrison on Monday.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God. And whether you like it or not, Gunner does not have a faux hawk.
No, he doesn't. And I like it.
Gunner, he beat up one guy, and I was like, okay, I've been watching wrestling for some time now. I've seen guys get beat up before. Then he beat up another guy, and I think part of the key for me was the first 2 guys, it was a gym, and they were using weight equipment. This could have been a Gold's Gym or a Pure Fitness or whatever. Then he moved over to another section where there was a ring and heavy bags, and these guys were training. These men didn't just want to, lose weight. These men were training to fight. And Gunner completely emasculated them. One by one, just went through. By the time he got to the guy who was in the ring, theoretically this guy was like, we're going to sparring or whatever. And Gunner, without fear, without hesitation, dove into the ring. The man tried to back up. He could not run fast enough. Then he got to like Geek 5 and Geek 6. I wanted this to keep going. I would have watched Gunner beat up geeks and humiliate them and talk shit for an hour.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
This was great.
This was the best thing on Impact in like 10 minutes. Because this Impact was awesome. It really was an awesome episode of Impact when I think about it. There's more to come.
Yeah.
Next segment, it's not really that awesome, but Jarrett and Sting had a conversation about Jeff Hardy. Jarrett reminded Sting that he was the guy in the ring when Hardy had showed up all filled up for a title match. Sting ignored this comment and just said that if Jarrett got involved in Hardy's match tonight, there would be consequences. Then we had a great segment. Bully Ray and the man who we think may be his new trainer, Scott Steiner.
Yeah.
They had a conversation about what to do about Abyss.
This is the best duo in wrestling. Like, by far. Scott Steiner and Bully Ray just are like, no 2 men play off each other better than these 2 men.
No, they do not.
And listen, I know this is ironic, but I hate just random screaming on my wrestling shows. The women are shrieking or there's always guys yelling on Impact, just yelling at the top of their lungs. Drives me nuts. But Scott Steiner and Bully Ray, all they do is yell, and it's awesome. And they agreed that they needed to get Abyss back into Immortal because he's a crazy man. And they said, well, what is a fella like? And they agreed, girls.
Not girls. Freaks.
Freaks.
And Scott Steiner said freaks. At that point, Bubba Ray did a fist pump and said freaks.
And they got in a discussion about if they knew any good freaks.
Bubba had one in New Jersey. He thought about getting rid of it, then decided he was not done with her yet. He asked Scott about the freak he had in Sheboygan. and Scott hung his head and said, "Retired." They didn't know what to do, but they decided they would get some freaks and they would feed them to Abyss, essentially. Yeah. And as they were leaving, Scott Steiner walked almost right into the camera, and as he left, we saw Bubba do something. We're not sure what. Our best guess is that he tried to lift Scott's weights, and they were too heavy and he fell down.
Yeah.
But this is phenomenal. Just a phenomenal segment. And we didn't even talk about the part where Scott Steiner was having a heart attack. He was upset about what they were going to do about Abyss. And Bubba, to calm him down, said, "Listen, do you have the largest arms in the world?" And Scott flexed and said, "Yes, I do." And that was enough for him.
Yes.
Beautiful.
It was awesome.
This show was great. ODB and Mickie James. They had a 1999 street fight. Slightly safer.
I think this is the best women's match in a long time.
All right. There was nothing wrong with it. They did all kinds of crowd brawling. They threw each other into the barricades and stuff. They went backstage. They used cookie sheets and other assorted equipment. And when they were back to the ring, and eventually, I forgot to write down the finish. I must have left the room. Mickie won with her DDT, didn't she?
You idiot. Super kick of chair into the face.
Oh, God damn it. Why did I not write that down? Yes, I do remember this now. Yes. They did the bit where Mickie was down. ODB had the chair. She's going to swing it and kill her, and then Mickie ducked it and kicked it into her face. Mm-hmm. Great. This was a win. Then things got better. They were doing the live via satellite interview with James Storm. He has been concussed, even though he has been there with a concussion. Even though last week he was trading punches with Kurt Angle with a concussion, this week he was home. He was very low-key, very believable, as he just said. They
actually did a great job because, he wasn't overly selling the concussion, but he was doing a promo in such a way that it was very subtle, but enough that it was believable that he really was not all there yet.
Sure.
I thought he did a great job.
He was saying it was a longer process than he thought. He didn't know when he'd be able to come back to the Impact Zone. He was talking about this like any other injured athlete. At this point, Kurt Angle interrupted at the announce desk. He stole Taz's headset. He asked Storm how it felt to lay in the cold tile floor, how it felt to tell his daughter that he had a concussion, and Storm said, "Well, you're going to find out." And they started shouting at each other, and Angle said, "Why don't you come here next week?" And Storm says, "I'm not cleared yet." And Angle says, "Oh, you're not clear yet. Why don't you come on next week?" And finally Storm says, "I'll be there, you son of a bitch." And Angle was happy. He stormed off, and Storm was furious. This is like a 5-star promo.
This was great.
This was fucking awesome.
Horrors showed up.
2 freaks showed up.
Like legit horrors. That was their gimmick.
I used Scott Steiner's terminology. They were freaks. They did not know much about this guy. They said he was a wrestler. That meant he was rich. Tall, tall, good-looking, and rich, I believe is what they said.
And had a great butt.
Had a great butt, yes. And they went behind a chain-link fence, which apparently is where just Abyss lives. It's just his lair. We got the longer version of the Roode family video. Sister talking about how he's not the same guy. His mom didn't know what happened. Yeah, there was also a key line here where everything made sense, where Bobby Roode just said that when Kurt, they built up to the title match where he did not win the title because Kurt cheated. And that was when Roode learned. In this business, you have to do whatever you can to win. It all made sense. So they all talked about how they were disappointed in him and everything. And then Roode says, they call me a user. They're using me. I'm the one putting food on the table and paying the bills. His sister outright said she wanted him to lose the belt so she could get her brother back, and his dad would like to see him forfeit the title and go about and do it again the right way. And his friend wanted him to wake up. This is great. We had RVD versus Robbie E. Things were going okay until Eric Young showed up, which I feel like I've said before. Eric Young with a fire extinguisher distracted Rob Terry and the ref for like a minute. Rob went up for the frog splash. He hit the frog splash, but there was no ref. Daniels hit the ring. He went to hit Rob Van Dam with the Angel's wings, but Robbie E was still laying in the ring, not moving, completely in the way.
Yeah.
It's funny, we talk about how Robbie E and Zack Ryder, they both come off like ripoffs of the other. And this week, they both made the same mistake. Get out of the way. So eventually, Daniels hit the Angel's wings, and Robbie rolled on top, and he won. This was not very good. The Freaks, who we saw earlier, they came out from behind the chain link fence. Their hair was disheveled. Their dresses were askew, and they were not sure what had just happened to them.
I know what just happened.
We were led to believe that Abyss had fucked them silly.
They looked worked.
He may have worked them, yes. Back to the car wash.
This was...
This is the best and worst thing they ever did at once. It was so bad it was funny, but it was bad.
They're washing the cars, and Angelina Love accidentally soaks Tara, and Tara screams, and I quote, "Angel," which is in fact Angelina's real name. That was hilarious. So a fight breaks out, which involves Brooke Tessmacher.
Now, before you get here, the first thing in the fight is that Angelina grabbed Tara's head. She grabbed her by the hair and rammed her head into the side of a car.
There's a street fight breaking out.
Yeah. So after we see a woman's head rammed into the side of a car, what does Brooke Tessmacher do?
Well, here in this street fight, she decided the best course of action was to take a sponge and began vigorously spanking girls on the ass.
Yes.
That was her offense.
That will teach them in this street fight.
Yeah.
They did some more stuff. Brooke started throwing side kicks in her bikini, which was buys.
It was.
And the wrestlers showed up. They were upset for whatever reason.
Actually, they showed up laughing.
Were they laughing?
A couple of them were.
I was under the impression they were angry.
It was clear they were just standing right off screen waiting for their cue. They just all come in a wall at the same time.
Perhaps some of them may have been laughing at that then, yes.
Or maybe they were just standing there just observing.
And finally, Gail Kim put a stop to this brawl by hosing them down. And that was the end.
That was the end. That was the payoff, everybody. Yeah. Wow.
They had an idea for a segment and no idea how to end it. Main event, Jeff Hardy versus AJ Styles versus Bobby Roode. Was fine. They were double teaming Roode for a while, and then eventually he fooled them into fighting each other. He raked one guy's eyes, then hit the other in the back of the head, and then bailed, so they each thought the other guy had hit them first. And they went back and forth for a bit. Hardy went up to hit the senton. When Jarrett ran down, he crotched Hardy in the ropes. Hardy fell into the ring, and Roode jumped on top and pinned him, and that was that. Mm-hmm. Kind of a lame finish. But Sting had told Jarrett there would be consequences if he interfered. And so he came out, and the consequences were that due to his interference here, he was putting him in an escape the cage match with Hardy at the pay-per-view. He was sure to clarify that the first man out wins. Anytime they clarify rules, I'm happy. And he said if Jarrett won, Hardy would leave TNA. Well, he didn't say forever. He would leave TNA. But if Hardy won, he would be top contender to the world title. This brought Karen out. She was pissed off about her husband being put in a cage match, and so Sting said just to control her, he was going to be handcuffed to Karen at ringside. And then they played their now customary dramatic music, and the show ended.
I just was kind of pissed off that after a great show, the show ends with Jeff Hardy and Jeff Jarrett, who are in a blood feud, are put in a match at the pay-per-view where in order to win, you have to run away from your opponent. I hate escape the cage rules. It's so stupid. Worse, I always saw the idea of the cage match was to keep people out and keep people in.
Mm-hmm.
So really, they're so concerned that Karen is going to scale the cage and get inside that she must be handcuffed to Sting. I just thought this, like... That was one of those things that was like, I was so mad that it ruined the show for me, but looking back at this report, it was still a great show.
Yeah, I went the other way, where this show was so great, I didn't realize how stupid any of this was until you just pointed it out.
It's just absolutely idiotic.
But
can't you just have a cage match with a thing on top, and these are your steps? I mean, they were going along so great, and then they had to make it stupid. A cage match, escape the cage, flee your opponent in a blood feud, and we're going to handcuff the girl to Sting because God knows she might interfere in a cage match. So yeah, that part sucked.
I love this show. I don't care.
It was a great show other than that. If you just, hope your DVR cuts out 5 minutes early, then the show's awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to get an impact here. So go, Vinny. Go.
Impact was not as good as it has been.
No.
But it was not as bad as the bad oldies either.
No.
We got a really cool video package recapping the Robert Roode angle last week, as well as James Storm insisting he would be there tonight to face Kurt Angle. So then we had a segment. There was maybe 5 of these on the show that went the same way. A person came to the ring, then he would call someone else to the ring, and then maybe he would call a third person in the ring.
The first person out was Sting.
Yeah.
In his street clothes and his gloves.
I've decided that he, at some point in his career, must have horribly scarred his hands.
I never cared about the gloves until today. Today was a day where it was just like, why is Sting wearing gloves?
Yeah.
Please explain. Is it winter? I know it is winter, but is it like, have they not paid the heating bill
Florida.
In the impact zone? I mean, did he scar his hands terribly trying to carry a horrible worker at some point in the last year? Why is he wearing gloves all the time, aside from merchandising reasons? So he came out, took him forever to get to the ring. Then he says, I want to call out Bobby Roode. And then Bobby Roode took forever to get to the ring. And then once he was in the ring, Sting said, now I'd like to call out Dixie Carter.
Yep.
5 minutes into the show, and we have seen nothing but entrances at this point.
Yes.
No buys.
So Sting wanted Roode to apologize for putting Dixie in harm's way.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Robert Roode almost killed Dixie Carter 3 weeks ago, and it's now just become a matter of grave importance.
So yes, he wanted Roode to apologize. Roode was a little offended that he should apologize, but then said he would do it. He just wanted some space. He apologized for not being honest. But he said now that he is the champion and business is way up, he can afford to tell the truth. Start talking about how ratings and ticket sales were flying up since he'd been champion, which I believe is a complete lie. But at least it's a lie that makes them sound good. Usually they tell lies about how business has fallen off, so that's an upgrade. He called her pathetic, called her daddy's girl, said she could not run a lemonade stand. He said that he had just spit in the face of authority, and then he turned and he literally spat in her face. Mm-hmm. And Sting chased him away. Announcers were shocked, and that was that. So after this segment, where they make Roode look like the most important guy in the company, as well as a giant asshole, immediately the first thing they show is a commercial for the Video Game Awards where Robert Roode is a complete tool. They put him with Robbie E. He came off as big a geek as Eric Young, a complete comedy fool. Mm-hmm. This was no buys.
Yeah. I thought this segment absolutely sucked a big one. I thought the whole idea of waiting 3 weeks to address this was bad times. I thought that it was bad times when the fans were chanting, on your knees, to Bobby as Dixie stood right in front of him. It just didn't work out. And I thought the whole thing was just kind of ridiculous, to be honest with you.
It was goofy. They did at least show, after commercial, they showed a replay of the spitting. So if we're supposed to care that Roode spat in her face, at least this made it seem like something we should care about.
I was infuriated that they waited 3 weeks to be concerned about Dixie nearly being killed by Bobby Roode. And at the beginning of this show, as noted, there were 5 minutes of people coming to the ring. And not for 5 seconds of that could they show a replay of what actually happened with Dixie Carter that they were about to talk about.
That's true.
This sucked.
So Sting went after Roode backstage. AJ was yelling at Roode. Sting went after him, and AJ and Hardy had to hold him back.
Watch the suit, said Bobby.
Abyss versus Samoa Joe. They wrestled for 30 seconds. They went to commercial. They wrestled for maybe 2 more minutes. That's probably generous. Bully Ray and Scott Steiner got involved. Joe got clotheslined with a chain. Then he was chokeslammed by Abyss, and then he was pinned. Ray and Steiner celebrated with Abyss. He laid out Steiner. Ray cowered. He was trapped in the corner. And that's Mike Tenay's exact words. Trapped in the corner. And then he turned and climbed through the ropes and left.
I don't know why Joe just doesn't quit. I mean, you remember Joe in like 2004, 2005?
Wasn't he awesome once?
Look at Samoa Joe today, this poor bastard.
Yeah. So this is there was no match here. It was an angle, and as angles go, it was not terribly thrilling.
I love how the whole storyline began when Abyss no-sold a table bump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen told her girls that ODB had failed last week to take out Mickie, so this week she needs Madison to tear Mickie apart. She told Gail that she would be having a match with Tracy, and Gail protested, but Karen wanted to explain something, and we went to commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Sting met with Gunner.
Gunner. I actually like Gunner now.
I love Gunner.
I shouldn't make fun of Gunner anymore.
Gunner said that Sting gave Garrett a match.
I just love that Sting now had bigger fish to fry. The whole Dixie thing, that's done.
Yeah.
Now I need to speak to Gunner.
Gunner has something to say. Gunner said that Sting had granted Garrett a match when Garrett had begged for it. Now he was there to beg for a rematch. He promised there would be no Flair and no Bischoff. It would be one-on-one. Sting agreed.
You've got my word, said Gunner.
Pope and Devon came out, and then they called out Crimson and Morgan. Same thing in every segment. So Devon cut a promo. Hell of a promo, actually. I was actually hoping it would end, and it'd just be 4 men in the ring, and only one of them talked.
Yeah.
But he cut a promo about how the champions were the scariest, biggest ass kickers in the world, but they hadn't fought Pope and Devon yet, and he was a tag team specialist, and they were going to have a hell of a match at the pay-per-view and win the belts. And he said testify, and his music played, and everyone was happy. Pope was not down with this, however. He had something to say. He called Crimson and Morgan, quote, the dumbest honkies.
Yeah. I don't know.
Whatever. He said the titles were all about money. He was going to do whatever it took to win the belts. He went to leave. And I can say this because he used the term honkies. A race war broke out.
Yeah.
The black men fought the white men. It went on for a long time. Devon and Crimson disappeared. This left Morgan and Pope in the ring. They brawled and brawled and brawled. Pope hit a low blow. Then he called Devon's children into the ring from the crowd. They came in. They triple-teamed Morgan until he fired up and they all fled. Too much going on.
I don't know if as a half-white fella, I'm supposed to be offended if somebody calls me a honky.
It's impossible to be offended by that word.
The word is so preposterous.
Goofy. Yes.
It's like if someone said you're a big galoot.
Exactly. You wouldn't be angry.
Really? A galoot?
You try not to giggle.
He just called me a galoot. Say that again. I want to laugh harder.
Galoot.
Yeah.
You galoot.
You actually look like a big galoot.
I kind of do.
So you could perhaps somewhat be offended.
My feelings may be hurt.
But I would laugh if someone called me a big galoot. I guess I'd probably be, I'd kind of be a little honored. Like, really? I'm a big galoot?
No, you don't want to. No, galoot's not positive.
I don't know.
Galoot is clumsy and slouching.
I don't even know what that word even means.
That's what it sounds like.
When I think of a term, an offensive term to call you, I think a big galoot. I need to look that up,
I'm doing that right now.
What the?
I feel like I'm a galoot, and I'm not happy about that.
Hopefully we haven't been saying a horrible racial term this entire time.
Galoot. Do not say this word around Samoans. All right.
Let's see. A big, dumb, rather oafish man.
Yeah, that's me. Well,
that's
dumb.
You. Description that combines the worst aspects of being lazy and fat, as opposed to the best aspects. You know, you're well fed,
okay,
and you don't have a job.
I am certainly a galoot.
And number 3, a combination of 1 and 2.
I am looking at one here on dictionary.com under word origin and history. An awkward or boorish man, 1812 nautical, raw recruit, green hand, originally a sailor's contemptuous word for soldiers or marines of uncertain origin. The Dictionary of American Slang proposes gallet, Sierra Leone Creole form of Spanish galeoto.
Right, hold on.
There's a point to this. Galley slave, perhaps rather Dutch slang, kloot, testicle.
That's you.
All right.
I like the Urban Dictionary much better for all these words. Galoot is an old word used primarily in Scotland that means a person with an ungainly, cumbersome, and clumsy personality.
Is my personality ungainly and clumsy? My body is.
Well, you stutter so much that yes.
All right.
Did you write this one here? A devastatingly handsome, crushingly intelligent, and bitingly witty man?
I would like to say that I had.
I like this one. Galoot. Someone who prefers. I think that's supposed to be prefers.
You must have written that one.
Someone who wrote. You are definitely a clumsy personality.
Did I say Roten?
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
I can go back.
I believe you.
But galoot here. Someone who prefers to use old hand tools instead of modern power tools.
Well, there's a word that I can imagine people would use all the time.
And the example here, the galoot really liked to use his hand planer. Yeah. And finally, Galoot. Idiot that has no idea what he's doing, and someone who changes themselves physically, sometimes mentally, during a relationship. For example, he used to be all preppy, and now that he's going out with her, he's become a Galoot. How about that?
I like it when you say it that way. It sounds like you're saying glute. Not galoot.
Yeah.
Glute.
This literally is my favorite site on the internet, is UrbanDictionary.com. Maybe later we'll look up the definitions of galoot, clumsy, cumbersome, and oaf. Apparently there are several spellings for galoot. All right, Vinny, continue.
Mickie James versus Madison Rayne. It was fine for a 4-minute match. Madison failed to take Mickie out. Mickie won with a DDT. Gail came out and held up her title belt, and that was that.
You didn't mention the fact that she was nearly killed by this DDT?
Their DDT did look kind of fatal. Bully Ray and Scott Steiner had a meeting. This was not as good as their meeting last week. And in fact, as they approached the end, I was pretty disappointed with it. But finally, Steiner said, I'm going to go talk to Bischoff. He left, and Ray said, okay, good, go talk to Bischoff. So Steiner, who was still walking, off camera, a little farther away, shouted, I'm going to talk to Bischoff. And Ray said, good, go talk to Bischoff. This continued. And they were shouting at each other louder and louder until finally Ray just told him to shut up, and that was funny.
Yes.
Gunner versus Garrett. Gunner took it upon himself to eject Bischoff and Flair, so perhaps he is turning face, although it's TNA, so you never know. Garrett's a bad wrestler. Didn't really embarrass himself here, but did not look good. And then he did what they called a single leg takedown. He laid on top of Gunner. The pinfall appeared to be edited, but Garrett won.
Yeah.
Then Gunner kicked his ass to ensure that nobody got over. He teased a piledriver on the floor. Eric Bischoff ran down, protesting and screaming, but then Eric pulled up the black mats and Gunner piledrived him on the cement. So Garrett, I presume, will never be seen again.
Well, maybe, like I suggested, he's going to Ohio Valley.
Yeah, or he'll be back next week, one of the two.
He was being taken out on a stretcher after the break, and we had the absolute best moment on Impact of Flair ecstatic. Now, keep in mind, Garrett is in a neck brace tied to a gurney, being put in an ambulance.
Unconscious.
And Flair's like, wow, great debut, pro wrestler, great job, I'm proud of you, and he's chopping him on the chest repeatedly. And they put Gunner in the ambulance, and Flair says, Happy Holidays! And him and Eric are cackling, and then he adds, and send a nurse back to the hotel! Flair is the best heel of all time.
Yeah.
Outrageously joyous at the disaster that had just befallen this poor fella.
Just realized this in December of 2011.
Well, I mean, it would just kind of, hammer
this
home to me.
This was a
here.
great segment.
Mm-hmm.
I particularly enjoyed the chopping.
Yeah, he chopped him repeatedly.
He was laying down. It was an overhand chop, but he was clearly and stiffly chopping him in the chest.
You're in the business, kid. Yep. How's it feel?
I also love...
Good work out there.
As we mentioned, he was being loaded into an ambulance at the time. The EMTs were not even giving Flair a second glance.
No.
This was just another day at the office for them.
Well, probably was.
James Storm came out. He called out Kurt Angle. Every segment just like this.
I don't care here because this one was great.
This was the best thing on the show by a mile. Angle he said Storm was tough just for showing up, gave him credit for that. Said it was his fault for not finishing the job, but he vowed to finish him at the pay-per-view. And then James Storm caught goddamn fire.
Yeah.
He started talking about tragedies in his life, losing his father, losing his stepbrothers, losing his father-in-law, all before he turned 20. Said he had looked death in the face and there was nothing that scared him. He talked about how the last time he had hit the super kick on Angle, it had knocked him out cold. He said, the pay-per-view, I'm going to hit it, and I'm going to crush your noggin like a beer can. He said that Angle had attacked him before. He turned his back to Angle and dared him to attack him again. Angle didn't do it. Storm stared him down and said, I will see you at the pay-per-view, and he left. This was a thumbs up.
For those of you that don't watch Impact, this was like the best segment in God knows how long. And I am not kidding here. James Storm is the best new character in pro wrestling in like 5 years.
He's the best babyface on earth.
He's an awesome promo. He's a great worker. He's got great fire. this segment with Kurt Angle, Kurt for most of the promo just had to stand there looking at him, just infuriated. And everything about this was like, I mean, this, if this were pro wrestling like it used to be, this would have sold like 1 million buys. You know, it's TNA in 2011, so I'm sure it sold, actually this probably sold like 50 buys, which is per TNA standards.
That's a huge
fabulous
deal.
But find this, everyone. If there's a replay or if it's online somewhere, find the segment on this show where James Storm tore Kurt Angle a new one. This was just the absolute best. Literally, name me somebody in WWE or TNA that has like in the last 5 years that has seen this kind of elevation and talk about being given the ball and running all the way with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't watch football, but I know if you get the ball and you go all the way to the other end,
that is
win.
a good thing.
Yeah, this guy is doing this in like the Super Bowl. You know, he's absolutely, I mean, God bless Bobby Roode and all, but Storm needs to be the top star in this company.
That
and I don't
was
know if
actually
it's gonna happen.
awfully clear by the end of the show.
Yeah, I hope
it's not
that
a knock on Roode.
They figured something out when he had that first match with Angle. They were like, oh my God, this guy could work. He could be something. Really? It took you that long, you idiots? You know, I mentioned this, I don't know what show I mentioned this on. It may have been on Observer Live. But years ago, and you can go back in the archives and go back in the newsletter. Years ago, when it was America's Most Wanted, and they were splitting up, and everyone's like, oh, Chris Harris is going to be a big star. Chris Harris is going to be, you know, he's going to be the main eventer. And, man, you know, James Storm is good, but he's going to be a mid-car. And I was like, listen, everybody, James Storm is the talent in this team. I said this. You can go back. I called James Storm being the talent in the team. And I stand by that today. James Storm, God bless Bobby Roode, but you need to build this company around James Storm. He is awesome.
He's the man.
Absolutely awesome.
Karen was backstage telling Gail. Karen told Gail that Gail needed to wrestle a match so Karen would look fair, because Karen had already booked a match with Mickie. So Gail needed to wrestle to protect Karen's reputation. So she was booking Gail against Tracy, but then she flat out said, I am not fair.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what the point of this exercise was. She told Tracy...
He was cackling.
She just wanted to be an evil bitch. She told Tracy basically that she had to do the job tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that. He had actually, this is a great segment too. Devon was yelling at his kids. He had seen what they had done earlier, just tearing them a new one. Pope walked in to try to verbally defend them. Devon Dudley grabbed this man, threw him violently against the wall, tore him a new one, was about to throw a punch. One of his children blocked the punch. Devon was so shocked it calmed him down. Pope took the opportunity to flee for safety. Devon explained to the boys that he was going to leave before he did something he regretted, but he wanted them to think about what they had just done, and he left. The children were shaken. Pope returned, let them know that they had done everything right. They had done everything he had said. He was going to train them. He was going to make them stars.
And their dad was a hothead, and he'd be fine.
Yes. Enjoyed this. Gail versus Tracy. Tracy went into business for herself. She laid down. Gail covered her. Then she kicked out. Fired up. They did some stuff. Gail, the women's champion, needed interference from Karen and Madison Rayne to beat Tracy Brooks, who never wrestles.
Yeah.
What can you do? Jeff Jarrett and Bobby Roode cut a quick promo. They said they would win tonight, and then they would win their matches at the pay-per-view. Daniels cut a promo. He wants a straight wrestling match with Bob Van Dam at the pay-per-view.
Did they not just do that at the last pay-per-view? And the gimmick was that they had Daniels talked him into a straight match, and Bob was like, all right.
Whatever.
And then Daniels proceeded to try to cheat. Because sworn I just saw that.
That does sound awfully familiar.
Maybe they're forgetting that we saw what we saw.
Yep. Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles versus Jeff Jarrett and Bobby Roode in our main event. It was one of the matches that starts in a four-way, then settles down into a tag match. Shortly thereafter, Jarrett and Hardy just brawled to the back. Karen was with them. So it became AJ versus Roode one-on-one. They wrestled for a bit. AJ won with a small package, so he has the momentum going into Sunday's pay-per-view. Yes, the pay-per-view is this Sunday.
Yeah, it was Roode going for, he worked over his leg the whole time. Then he went for a fisherman suplex. AJ rolled him up for the pin. Finish was great. Well executed and a great finish for the pay-per-view. And then AJ wiped him out with the pescado. Roode ran away, but then came back out, clipped the leg, beat the crap out of him. So the storyline is that AJ has to wrestle for 30 minutes on Sunday in an Iron Man match, and he's got a bad wheel.
Yeah, he actually started selling the knee when he hit the dive. So when Roode saw a weakness and exploited it. So
he sold the leg the entire match, Vince.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, pay attention.
I'll try.
So anyway, that was the show. The main event segment and everything like that made the show worthwhile. Again, not the best Impact, but judging on the Impact standards of the past decade, this was a fine show. Which brings us to this TNA pay-per-view.
Actually, it does, doesn't it?
I'm going to give spoilers. Nobody cares about TNA.
That's a spoiler?
Well, I'm just saying in general. I don't think people are going to be upset that I spoil TNA for them. But here we go. So on SmackDown, they do this great beat the clock match. Dude tries to stall out the clock. He gets caught. He gets RKO'd. He gets pinned. Everybody goes home happy. Awesome. On a show that we're asked to pay $44.95 for in HD, they also have a match where you try and beat the clock. And a guy, it's tied, and the champion runs and runs and runs and runs, and the time limit expires.
Yeah.
And the show goes off the air with no main event winner. Again, if this had been a TV match, fine. It was free. But I paid $44.95, and I didn't get a finish. Now, as Dave noted on the show Sunday, Dave liked the finish, in the sense that it's a good finish to build up something else. Where are they going with this feud? Well, if they actually were going somewhere with it, then I would say, Dave, perhaps you're right. However, as it turns out, after Dave had made a statement, the next day when they taped Impact, you do know what they did, don't you, Vinny?
No, of course not.
Really?
Why would I read Impact spoilers? I don't care.
Because you just got to see where they go with this. They gave the 5 more minutes at the beginning of Impact.
Well, there you go. They've made it very clear.
There you go, he says.
Well, yeah, Brian. We've been doing this. How many years have we been talking about Impact?
Hold on a minute,
They no longer give a shit about pay-per-views. They consider pay-per-views a nuisance they must do to get to the TV show.
History of wrestling, has there ever been a match that began on pay-per-view and ended on television 4 days later? In any company?
Not to my knowledge.
They went to a draw on TV, and the fans chanted 5 more minutes, and so they went off the air, and 4 days later, the first thing they do on television is they give them 5 more minutes. Not even, hey, let's do a rematch on television and get a winner here. No, Sting came out and said, let's do 5 more minutes at the beginning of the show, 4 days later, supposedly, when you're both fresh. Maybe we'll get a finish in 5 minutes. Which, of course, they didn't. So then they did a normal match, and Bobby Roode retained the title.
So that's the end of it, then?
Yeah, that's the end.
Well, there you, that is what they do.
That is the end.
You don't like it when I say there you go, but that's all I can say.
No, this is astonishing. They do stupid things all the time, but I can't even conceive of the idea of doing a draw on pay-per-view. Again, it would be one thing if they went to a draw and then on TV they just said, okay, main event of the show, Roode and AJ, must be a winner. That'd be fine. But to actually start the show and go, now we're going to give you people the 5 more minutes. That's like literally the dumbest thing I've ever heard in wrestling. I can't think of anything dumber.
I was fine with the show going off the air and the match being a draw. I had no problem with it. I had no problem with the idea.
You didn't pay a cent for it.
That's not entirely irrelevant, but I was fine with the idea of the heel champion playing for the draw and just trying to kill clock and escape with his title. But the execution of it was so lame.
Vinny,
I was just talking here about Dolph and Randy, where Randy was running wild and Dolph was literally running away trying to kill clock, and Randy was frantically hitting moves and going for covers. The last minute of the TNA pay-per-view, there was no contact.
Let me give you an analogy.
Roode just walked around.
Let me give you an analogy.
It was lame.
I went to the new Safeway the other night, and they had a box of donut holes for 99 cents.
Okay. You say that like it's your proof.
Could have bought 45 boxes of donut holes for what I paid for this pay-per-view. And I didn't get a finish in the main event.
I didn't, maybe I did not give you any money. That's true. But I did drive back and forth, which is like $10, and it's 2 extra hours of my life I didn't get. I devoted 5 hours of my life to this pay-per-view, and I didn't get a finish either.
Well, yeah. But I also devoted time in my life, and I paid $44.95, not counting tax. And, by the way, the cable company double billed me last month. That's another matter entirely. Comcast, everyone. But the point is, that's the thing about the UFC pay-per-views, too. When you mentioned 18-year-olds buying UFC shows, and I scoffed. Reason for that is because the 18-year-olds are the ones that are streaming the pay-per-views.
I see.
Why? Because there's like a show every single weekend, and you're asking 18-year-olds, many of whom are probably unemployed because the economy sucks, to pay $54.95 twice a month? I don't think so. That's another matter entirely. But the point of this is, I was upset not to have a finish in the main event.
All right.
Especially since they gave me the finish on TV 3 days later. Why couldn't you just give me 5 more minutes on the pay-per-view and just finish this thing off?
Because, Brian, you were the only person watching the pay-per-view. They have done this for years.
It's not true.
The pay-per-view is a commercial for the TV show.
There were 7,000
other...
That's
how their company is built.
7,000 other people just like me.
Wow. Well,
ripped off.
Is that really how many people watch these shows?
Yeah, 7,000 people.
Very, very few.
7,000 people probably bought this pay-per-view. This was the least number of responses Dave has gotten for a show since before they were on Spike TV. You know?
Like when they had,
8 thumbs up, 6 thumbs down. And that's literally the numbers we're probably going to get. I don't know what the numbers are. But no one saw this show. And so for the die-hard, for the people that love TNA so much, for the die-hard, most passionate, strongest supporters of the product, they gave them a match without a finish, and then they get to finish free on television.
They did.
Astonishing.
It's not, though.
Honest to God, this one astonishes me.
I take it as business as usual.
I don't, because things have been better of late. You'd think when things were better, they wouldn't do so many stupid things, but this takes the cake.
No, I know. I expect nothing out of these people. Even when it gets better, I expect them to fuck something up soon, and they did. The other thing I took out of this pay-per-view was you and I are both very much into James Storm, cutting just awesome promos lately. He's had some good matches, and he comes on here and he has his match with Kurt Angle, and I thought James Storm looked really, really bad. And when he's doing a long singles match as opposed to a tag match, you realize he's athletically below the level of most main eventers these days, and then the match went on. He tried to keep up with Kurt Angle, and he got very, very, very blown up. And to the point where not just he was doing things slowly, but he had trouble getting up and over for moves. And it kind of sucked because he's been so great on promos, and they put him over as strong as they possibly could here. He kicked out of everything, and his finisher one time and won. And James Storm did not deliver.
Well, the fans not caring didn't help one bit.
I didn't care about anything, but...
Well, yeah, that didn't help.
I watched other matches that they did not care about, and I did not think, wow, that guy looks bad. This one I did not think, wow, the fans don't care about him, or wow, the fans aren't making noise. I thought, wow, James Storm looks bad.
I didn't think he looked that bad. He looked great. Certainly was not their first match. But I also watched the rest of the show.
Yeah, other than that, I did not get my 5 hours worth of anything out of this. Just usual, forgettable, pointless TNA pay-per-view. Thumbs down.
No thoughts on any of the matches here?
Actually, I just closed my notes. I really don't have any thoughts on them. Just a bunch of 2-star shit. Just a bunch of matches. I will open it back up to see if I missed anything. Got nothing to say about Daniels and RVD. It was a SmackDown match on a TNA pay-per-view.
That actually sounds like an improvement.
You may have a point there. I don't want to talk about Eric Young and Robbie E. Pope and Morgan and Crimson, what happened there?
They had a horrible match.
My notes here read, everyone lumbers into each other for a while, and champs win with double clothesline. Sucked.
That about covers it.
Yeah.
I gave that a half a star.
I went 3/4. I liked it just a little bit more than you did.
Wow.
I don't know why. I cannot argue that rating. Kash and Aries, on this show that 7,000 people watched, they risked their lives doing a crazy, stupid top rope powerbomb super Frankensteiner spot. Finish was great. It sounds overbooked, but they used one pair of brass knucks, then a second pair of brass knucks, then a title belt, and then a ref distraction, and then a brain buster. Trust me, it was awesome.
Yes.
You'll just have to take my word for it. It would take too long to go into here.
It worked because it played into the story of the match as opposed to just doing stuff. How many times do I see a pay-per-view and they just do a bunch of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't do that here. Everything made sense. They were trying to out-heel each other.
Yes.
And they were successful.
Well, Austin
Aries
Aries especially was successful, yes. Gail and Mickie, I thought was very good. Before the match, after about 16 tries, they managed to air a hype video, and it was nothing.
And they aired it again.
You've never seen so much work going into getting something so mediocre on the air. Although that sounds like a lot of things about TNA, actually. And yeah, I thought Gail and Mickie had a hell of a women's match. Pushing 3 stars. Really good. And Gail hit her finisher in 1 after Madison distracted, which is fine, because it means we get to see them wrestle more. That's good.
Vinny, don't get your hopes up, homie.
I won't get to see them wrestle more, is that what you're saying?
They've already ended the entire Roode AJ fight.
Yeah.
You may never see these two have a match ever again with each other.
Yeah, you're probably right. And then Sting and Hardy had their cage match. The idiocy continued as Jeff Hardy risked his life and nearly died for 7,000 fans.
With a bad back.
And presumably not going to take any painkillers afterwards. Doing a stupid senton off the top of a cage. What happened here? There was... Karen unlocked herself. She slammed the door on Hardy. It was not the finish. She tried to bring the guitar in. Sting carried her away. Hardy won with the twist of fate. 1.5 stars. Although Jeff Hardy did get the biggest reaction on the show by far.
I gave this 2.5 stars.
That's all I got to say about the TNA pay-per-view. Don't watch the show, anyone. Distracted.
By jail.
And drugs.
Mm-hmm.
So the show opened with, as we noted on Monday's show or Tuesday's show, the show opened with a 5-minute overtime. So it was essentially a 5-minute singles match between Bobby Roode and AJ Styles.
Yeah.
And it was good. With about a minute to go, AJ hit a reverse DDT and made a cover. Roode got his foot on the ropes. Then with 10 seconds to go, he had a big kick in the apron. He proceeded to look at the clock about 19 times. He tried a big fucking flip move, overshot his target, missed Roode entirely, and the clock expired.
He tried to do a springboard 450 and stepped on him.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Looked bad. So that was the 5 minutes. It was up. Sting came out and said, no, you're going to go... Oh, Sting came out with the... I was going to say goofiest, but I don't know what to say about this jacket. There was a lot of black leather. There was a lot of white leather. There was a lot of fringe. It's really all I can say.
You know, I want to say something about this match again. We ranted about this regarding the spoilers. Now we've actually seen it. And I stand by everything I said about how stupid this was. It wasn't even like Sting came out and they shot an angle to continue the match. The show just opened and they came down to the ring for what was billed as a 5 more minutes match. Why couldn't they do this on the pay-per-view?
Well, they didn't have any time.
And really, it was even more infuriating because they did the 5 more minutes, it went to a draw, and then Sting said, we must have a winner. Why must we have a winner on television, but not on pay-per-view that I paid $44.95 for? That's infuriating.
When you put it that way, that is a fine question.
if we must have a winner, why must we not have a winner on the day that the championship match was booked on a pay-per-view event? So, he said we must have a winner, and Roode immediately, do not pass go, do not collect $300, or however many dollars it is, inflation, or
the point is, he hooked a half crab and won.
He clipped his leg, and he put in the half crab, and he won.
35 minutes of wrestling, and he just put on a crab and won.
And now the feud's over.
Why didn't you do that before?
Now the feud is over.
Yeah. So
yes, today I am, in fact, just as infuriated. In fact, probably even more so than I was on Tuesday night when we did the spoilers for this show.
So Roode won. They went to commercial. And when it came back, they were doing backstage promos with Roode and AJ, which will be fine, except this is all heavily edited post-match stuff for something that in storyline happened like 4 minutes ago.
I think they have given up on people believing the show is live.
That's
I
clear.
really do, because they did another segment with Jesse Neal, where Jesse Neal gets pile-driven on the cement, and they go to a video package that's like 3 seconds long of the pile driver, and when the video package is over, there's already a stretcher down there.
Yes.
A backboard. So clearly they've given up on the idea that people think that the show is live.
Just watching this, it felt like we jumped forward 20 minutes. Like 20 minutes was just missing from the program.
And one other thing about this Iron Man deal. If you would have gone to a drawn pay-per-view, and then at the beginning of this show, Bobby Roode came out and began bragging about how he defended his title successfully and how he was a real champion. And then AJ Styles came out and he said, hold on a second. First off, you didn't defend your title. We went to a draw, and the only reason you're champion is because the champion retains in a draw. And the reason we went to a draw is because you ran away for the last minute like a coward. And then Bobby Roode starts screaming at how he's not a coward. They get in a big argument. Sting comes out and says, okay, fine. Let's sell this right now in a match. We're not going to have a time limit. We're not going to have anything else. We're just going to go until there's a winner. Ring the damn bell. Fine. I would be fine with that. But that's not what they did. The 5 more minutes just started immediately when the show went on the air. And then everything else we've mentioned right here. And you know, it's kind of funny because, like, if in the end Sting was just going to say one fall to a finish, why did they do an Iron Man match?
I don't know. I don't know that at all.
Drove me nuts. Go on. This cannot be defended, by the way.
The next match was, as Christy Hemme told us, a wild card tag team tournament match. No one had mentioned this tournament before, or explained the rules or what was going on. The deal is, it's a bunch of wacky teams. I don't know if they specifically said random, but yeah, the opener match here was the team of Hernandez and Rob Terry versus Scott Steiner and Abyss. And first thought was, doesn't Abyss still hate Steiner? And in fact, yes, he does. They worked this into it. Steiner and Abyss were on the gorilla position, basically backstage. Steiner was pleading with Abyss that they needed to work together to be a team. He said Immortal would make him better. And they seemed to be in agreement. They walked down to the ring, began to wrestle. Scott Steiner, you said, is 49 years old?
I believe 49, yes.
He's in there with great big Hernandez and great big Rob Terry, and he did not hesitate to throw these giant men around.
Mm-hmm.
He is absolutely, truly, totally a one-of-a-kind. So he's running wild on them. He goes to tag in Abyss. Abyss refuses. This led to Scott being cut off. He got double-teamed for a while. He made the hot tag to Abyss. Abyss ran wild. He hit his finisher, looked at Steiner, tagged him back in, and let Steiner get the win. And, so Steiner and Abyss won. Hernandez and Big Rob, at no point did they tease dissension. And Steiner and Abyss ended up working through their problems to win. This is exactly the opposite of what I was expecting, which would have been like both teams brawling with each other in the back. But no, they just had a match. One team won. Great. Very non-impact-like.
And then Abyss raised his hand in victory.
Abyss, yes, but they celebrated together. They are going to work through this. The opposite of every tag team ever.
You do realize in the end they'll almost certainly break up.
Well, sure. But they didn't. They've done this before in Impact. And the way it usually works is there'll be 8 teams or whatever, and all 8 teams will fight with each other throughout the entire tournament.
That does suck.
This, so far, none. There was one moment where two partners did not get along. Angle called out Sting. He is now claiming that in both times that James Storm beat him, Storm hit him with a loaded boot. Fantastic. He threatened to go to James Storm's hometown and beat up everyone there until Storm accepts his challenge. He said this would prove he was the biggest badass. Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Yes, it will. And then he left. This sounds like quality television.
I cannot wait till next
Kurt
week.
Angle going to Tennessee and tapping out Cowboys.
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome. This is going to be like...
Think about this. Look at how awesome it was when Gunner went to the gym and beat up six men.
This is going to be Kurt Angle.
Yeah. This could be the best television of the year.
Set your DVRs. We had Zema Ion versus Anthony Neese. They explained this would be a best-of-3 series.
That's what we need.
Don't really know why. A random 3-match series between these two men.
You know what's funny about this? They said there's going to be a best-of-3 series. And Zema proceeded to essentially pin Tony Neese 3 straight times.
He kind of did, yes.
He hit him with a finisher. He lifted him up at 2. He hit him with another finisher. He lifted him up at 2. He hit him with another finisher, and this time he pinned him. Now, Zema did not lift him up twice, and then Zema got pinned. No. Zema lifted him up twice after finishers, and then hit another finisher and pinned him.
Yes.
Which begs the question, why in God's name do I need to see this match 2 more times?
I'm not sure. This was like a 50-0 blowout in football.
Neese looked like... I mean, Neese... Think about this. They're doing a best-of-3 series with Tony Neese. And he got pinned 3 times in one match like a complete and total jobber. And meanwhile, Jesse Neal has been fired from TNA, and he won his last match.
I suppose he did, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Huh. Well, that's what, TNA does have a history of putting guys over after they have been canned. Mm-hmm. Remember Petey Williams' last match?
I don't, but...
Yeah, he broke down in the ring, and they brought him out for a special moment after he had been fired.
That's right, yeah.
The Jarretts arrived in the building. Due to these tips of the pay-per-view, one of them was getting fired tonight. They both tried to tell the other one they would fall on the sword, basically.
Yes, this was the beginning of the best series of vignettes, maybe in Impact history. Because we had great vignettes, and we actually got a great payoff at the end.
The Jarretts were fantastic on the show.
Jarrett is here. Jeff's going, I've been around a long time. It's time to step aside. I'm going to tell Sting that I need to go home and watch the kids. It's all about you. And she's like, oh, no, Jeff. There's only one Jeff Jarrett. I'll go home and watch the kids. I'll tell Sting that you're the one that needs to stay around.
Yes.
They were arguing. They were arguing over who was going to take the sword.
Ziva Ion cut a promo. He said he was the prettiest man who had the prettiest gear, which I strongly disagree with on that point. His gear sucks.
He's a heel.
And he said it's all about me, myself, and Ion. To which you recoiled in horror.
At first I was like, this is the absolute dirt worst. And then I realized Zema Ion is a heel. This is the reaction I am supposed to have. Therefore, I concluded that he's great.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ric Flair gave Gunner a pep talk. Said tonight we were going to take Jesse Neal out. Followed by Jesse Neal versus Gunner. Gunner destroyed him. He shoved the ref down for the DQ, so there's Jesse Neal's big win.
Which, again, we were talking about this the other day. Why couldn't Sheamus just beat Jinder Mahal?
I don't know.
Why couldn't Jesse Neal be beaten and then pile-driven? Why did Gunner have to shove the ref so that he would lose via disqualification and then pile-drive this man on the cement or DDT him on the cement and send him away forever? I do not understand.
Wrestling has passed us by.
Wrestling has passed me by, yes.
But yes, Gunner shoved the ref down for the DQ. He hit a DDT on the cement. They carted Jesse Neal out, so it's a sad goodbye for him. And the gimmick is Gunner is taking people out every week. And no, I don't know why Gunner can't also pin them first. I don't have a good answer to that. Karen Jarrett had a meeting with Sting. She tried to be flirty with him and compliment him how much she liked his jacket. And then she proceeded to throw her husband Jeff immediately, directly, violently under the bus.
Yes.
There's 100 Jeff Jarretts out there, she said. It's time for him to go home and raise the children. You need me here to run the Knockouts division. On and on and on about how important she was to the show, how Jeff had nothing to offer.
It was great.
Sting was very surprised. He listened to what she had to say. And I told her to leave, and she says, okay, we're good, though, right? And Sting got very goofy and giggly with her and said, yeah, we're good. And she left, and they were giggling, and Sting stopped giggling and said, poor Jeff.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Jeff Hardy.
That was an outstanding segment.
It really was. Jeff Hardy came to the ring to talk about his title match. He was very quickly interrupted by Bully Ray. Bully Ray thanked him for showing up in no condition to perform all those many months ago, because the next day, with Hardy out of the picture, there was a spot open in Immortal, and Bully Ray stepped into it, and since then he had been a star. This is all true.
Mm-hmm.
This is all true. He told Jeff, yes, they were going to have a match tonight. He vowed he would not be a stepping stone, he would be a freight train, and Jeff was in his tracks. It was good. Samoa Joe and Magnus had a meeting. They were wacky tag team partners in the tournament tonight. Joe told Magnus to stay out of his way. They were not friends. Magnus said, no, we're not friends. You stay out of my way. Let's just go win this goddamn thing. So we had the match. It was Joe and Magnus versus Robbie E and Doug Williams. Everyone on both teams worked together fine. And in fact, the finish was Joe was beating up Robbie, and Williams climbed the turnbuckles behind him, and Magnus charged across the ring to take Williams out. This let Joe hit the muscle buster for the win. So yes, Magnus literally had Joe's back, and they celebrated together as well.
And he threw his former partner under the bus.
And he threw Doug Williams under the bus because it was all about winning.
A lot of people being thrown under the bus on this show.
This was fun. Jeff Jarrett met with Sting. First words out of his mouth, that jacket looks really, really nice. I love Jeff Jarrett sometimes. Just love him. So he was saying, look, the truth is Karen wants to be home. She wants to take care of the children. And, you know, I've known you for 25, 30 years, and we both know women don't belong in wrestling. Come on now. He just asked Sting to be as gentle and nice as he could when he did the inevitable and let her go.
Yes. Another fantastic segment.
This was also great. Eric Young met with ODB.
I hated this until I loved it.
That's a good. You know what? That's good. I had very mixed emotions as well.
When Eric Young was just there talking about how his mother dressed him, I was like, it's not funny. It's stupid. It's dumber every week. And then ODB showed up as his tag team partner. And ODB and Eric Young together as a unit. In some odd way, this worked.
You know, they are quite possibly my two least favorite TNA personalities. But you put them together, and two negatives do, in fact, make a positive.
It is an amazing synergy.
They cancel each other out. He's been doing the gimmick where he wants to lock up with refs and fans and everyone, and he wanted to lock up with her, and she locked up with him and then threw him backwards.
Shoved him into the wall.
Yeah. And she said, I bet you've never seen a set like this before. And she tapped her enormous fake breasts. And he just said, no, I haven't. There's something about these. It's only one segment. Let's not go overboard.
Yes.
But they somehow seem to bring out the best in each other. Had another great segment. Devon comes to the ring. He calls out Pope. He said he wants to settle the situation they had. Much to Devon's surprise, his twin sons came out along with Pope.
Yeah. He shouldn't have been surprised, but of course he was.
Also should be noted, the twins had a very small amount, but they had some bling.
Mm-hmm.
That should have been a clue. So Devon switched course midstream here. Now he saw his sons were involved. He said basically he did not want to. He just wanted to cut ties with this man immediately. He says that, like all parents, he would take a bullet or step in front of a bus, and that's actually what he said. I'm not joking. Step in front of a bus to keep his children safe. Said he'd always been their daddy, He was going to raise them and train them like he wanted to, and he said, let's go, boys. And he was going to leave and just let it be done. Pope wouldn't let him go. He said, come on back here. These children want a cool dad. That's what he said. He said, you got them watching you and your brother at a bingo hall. They're not going to learn anything from that. They need good training. You will never be as fly as me. He said that, I forget exactly the exact verbiage he used, but as my notes read here, he talks about banging the twins' mom.
Yeah, he did.
So this led to Devon attacking him. The twins pulled their father off of Pope. Devon hugged them. They turned to leave. Pope ran up and fouled him. Then he threw Devon on the ground. He got the mount. The twins stood there, watched this man beat their father. And then they reached into their pockets. And they pulled out the sunglasses with the cross. And they put them on. Making it clear, symbolizing to the world, they had turned their back on their father to join the Pope.
Yeah.
And they held their father as the Pope slapped him with baby powder. Left him laying in an embarrassed heap without his kids.
They're mine now, he concluded.
They're mine now, and he left with the boys.
Those boys should be my seed. That's what he said.
That's what he said. Yes, and I'm working on that. Or something, yes.
Yes.
This was great.
This was quite awesome.
For as wonky and erratic as this storyline has been, this payoff was awesome.
Hopefully he teaches them boys some charisma.
Some charisma and some style.
Yeah. Both. I think they'll show up with some style next week.
Of the two, charisma is much harder.
They need some charisma, though.
They do. Maybe
they got plenty of it. They've just had to play shy boys up until now.
That's true. The Jarretts met with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And after they both sabotaged each other to Sting, they were now trying to make nice and repeating their claims from earlier. No, honey, you need to stay with the company. I need to go home.
What did you tell him? Jeff said. And Karen said, I told him that you were irreplaceable. And Jeff said, no. I told him that we go back 25 years and he's got to believe that I know a star when I see one, and Karen, you're a star. Women are a pedestal in this business now, he said.
Yes.
Jeff is an amazing man.
He really is.
And then production guy came up and said, Sting wants to see you. And they were like, who, me? Her? Him? And he said, both of you. Trouble's coming.
Tracy Brooks versus Madison Rayne.
I don't know what the hell happened here.
Tracy went charging up the ramps to hit a spear or at least a takedown, and holy God, it looked bad.
Horrible.
Then she gathered her down in the ring with her pants falling down. They started to wrestle, and then Madison Rayne hit about 19 moves in a row and pinned her.
Well, she hit her falling knee deal, and Tracy kicked out, which I couldn't believe. And then Madison just kicked her in the head and pinned her. A weird finish. Move on.
That was that. Sting met with the Jarretts. This was the big payoff.
Once again, we had a series of segments, all of which were great, leading to a big payoff. And in fact, I don't know if there's ever been a series of TNA vignettes that had a payoff as great as this one.
So Sting sits them down. The Jarretts are sitting on a couch looking up at Sting. Sting is standing there with his arms folded. And he says, and this is a quote, I take it neither one of you has seen one segment of the show tonight, have you?
Yes.
They said no. They didn't really know what was going on. They said they've been busy. And so Sting, he revealed what they said, and they didn't believe it. They both denied it. So then Sting had video evidence.
Yes.
And he played video of Karen saying there were hundreds of Jeff Jarretts out there, at which point the real Jeff Jarrett leapt to his feet. Hundreds of Jeff Jarretts! How could you? What's wrong with you? They screamed at each other for a long time. I will confess, I thought there was too much screaming here.
I didn't.
But
this was a rare example. See, the thing is, there's so much screaming on every show. Mm-hmm. But if they would have just if there were like 80% less screaming, this would have been the best screaming segment of all time.
Okay.
They were just awesome.
They were. And so
Jeff was freaking out. How dare you? 50 Jeff Jarretts, 100 Jeff Jarretts. This is crazy. And then, of course, Sting's like, hey, I got some video of you too, Jeff. And he's like, turn the volume down. No one wants to hear this. And Sting's like, hold on a second. So he turns up the volume.
Angry
and
to scared immediately.
Karen listens to it, and she's like, oh my God, you liar, I hate you. And they're yelling back and forth. And the reason it was so great is because they're screaming each other back and forth about what the other lied to the other about. And meanwhile, Sting is standing there in his atrocious jacket, arms crossed, LOL. The biggest smile you've ever seen, laughing uproariously at what he has created. And, of course, they scream and yell and shout, and he finally tells them to shut up, and he said, you know what? I said one of you was going to be fired. Both of you apparently think the other one should be fired, so guess what? You're both fired! And sure enough, they were both fired. They're gone. An awesome payoff to an awesome series of vignettes. I love this with all my heart.
This was awfully great. And we had the main event. It was anticlimactic. It was Jeff Hardy versus Bully Ray. I had to look this up because I would have sworn this went about 3 minutes. It actually went almost 5, which is still pretty short for a TV main.
It did start 1 minute before the end of the show.
That's usually a bad sign.
So they had an overrun.
Yeah, it was fine. Bully Ray got to kick out of a twist of fate, and then like a minute later, he had another one and did not kick out this time.
It's a very average match until the last minute, then it really picked up.
Yep. So Roode was doing commentary. That happened. Ray attacked Hardy. Roode ran down. They were going to put him through a table. They did put him through a table. That's right. They put Hardy through a table. At this point, after Hardy had gone through the table, Sting ran out. He got in both their faces, and Roode hit him from the belt from behind, and they lead him out, and that was that.
Well, Sting was busy dealing with the Jarretts. Very busy man.
That's true.
But yes, this will set up a tag match for, I was going to say down the road, but seriously, I think it's next week. But yeah, this was a fine wrestling program, all things considered. And by all things considered, I mean there was some stupid stuff at the beginning of the show. But in general, one of the better impacts in a long time. And if you've not seen it, if you have it on the DVR, do not delete it until you watch all of the Karen and Jeff segments.
Yes.
They were so great. All right, let's do Impact here.
This is a bad Impact.
This show sucks.
This was a return of the Impact of old. Well, not quite that bad, but...
That was pretty bad. This was like a show. This was like an old Vince Russo show. It was just, in every segment, it was god-awful in some way, except for the main event.
And I would say this is awful in every way, except all segments involving Bully Ray.
He was great.
He was great on this show. Right from the very beginning, Bobby Roode came out in a suit with his belt, and Bully Ray came out in his regular wrestling gear and a Santa hat. That was already awesome. So Roode starts to talk, and it's the same generic heel champion stuff you've heard a billion times. And then Ray takes the mic and he saves the show. And he talks about the spirit of giving and all the things he likes to give. He likes to give dollar bills to strippers, likes to give whiskey to his cat. But what he likes to give most is beatings. I love this man.
He was quite great.
So Roode said he had been naughty. He called Sting out to suspend him. I'm not sure why he wanted to be suspended. I guess just to guarantee he would finish the new year with his title. Hardy came out and said, instead, Hardy and Roode gibbered for a while. It was boring. And finally Ray took over and said, Jeff Hardy, you're not like me. You're not beloved. You've got no friends. Nobody wants to be your partner. And out came Sting, wearing his Joker face paint and a Jeff Hardy shirt. This symbolized he was going to be Hardy's partner. So that was the main event. The Bully Ray and Rob Roode versus Sting and Jeff Hardy. This segment was fun, thanks to Bully Ray.
Hold on a second. What the hell happened to the show?
What?
The show has disappeared.
That's distressing.
Yes, it is. Hold on a second.
Okay. Shit.
It says it's recording. What is going on? Oh, I see what happened. Okay, hold on. We're good.
Okay.
Everybody still there?
I'm still here.
It's the weirdest goddamn thing I ever seen. All right, I think we're good. Hold on a second, everybody. All right, we appear to be all right.
Good.
I don't know what happened.
I guess it doesn't matter.
No, go on.
All right.
No, I'm looking. There's a wave pattern here, and it had vanished completely which would mean show, not recording. And the little line is going across but not recording anything. And so I had a complete panic that all of that work we went to for the past 44 minutes did not occur. But luckily it did occur, so we're good. Continue.
Okay. So they've been doing this wild card tag team tournament. And last week, the idea is it's random teams. And last week, the teams seemed random. Samoa Joe and Magnus, just two guys. Rob Terry and Hernandez. Doug Williams and I was going to look up his partner, but it was not like his arch enemy. So this week, the random tag teams are Rob Van Dam and Chris Daniels, who are wacky partners who hate each other, and AJ and Kazarian, who are best friends.
Yeah.
Shenanigans. Yep. I call fix. The fix is in. Mm-hmm. So Rob Van Dam and Chris Daniels, in fact, did not get along. Daniels refused to tag in. Then when he tried to blind tag himself in, Rob Van Dam collided with him and knocked him off the apron. I do not think this is the planned spot, because Daniels just got in the ring anyway, and they cut him off.
I think it was a planned spot. It was just poorly executed.
That's possible. It certainly was poor.
Based on the rest of this show, that's exactly what was happening.
So Kaz ended up pinning Daniels with his wacky over-the-shoulder piledriver thing. This is a mess.
And about sucked.
Anthony Neese, who now looks like mini Chris Masters.
Oh, my God. This segment.
Talked about the athleticism of the X Division, how he fits in. It was a bad promo. They played the Zema Ion one. Then Zema Ion wrestled Anthony Neese.
Now, for those of you that didn't see last week's show, they had a indie match last week. It's the best I can say about it. And Zema Ion beat him 3 straight times, but pulled him up at 2. And then they didn't do the slip on the banana peel finish. He beat him with 3 different finishers, pulled him up at 2 each time, and then hit another finisher and did not pull him up at 2 and beat him. So Anthony Neese lost essentially 3 times on last week's show. He looked like a complete dork. They beat him like a drum. And then they alerted us it's best of 3. So we had to see them wrestle again tonight. They proceeded to have... This was not even like a 2011 indie match. This was a 2001 indie match.
Yes.
Where I've never seen so many flips in a 2-minute match in my life. They did move after move after move, taking turns.
Yes.
And finally, again, Zema hit a move and pulled him up at 2. So yes, Tony Neese, for the record, has now been beaten 4 times in 2 matches. And then Zema slipped on a banana peel and he was pinned. This was the worst segment on Impact in God knows how long. Nobody cared. Absolutely dead crowd. They got deader the longer the match went on. The story of the match sucked. There was a story. The story was, we are going to take turns doing moves to each other. I'm just going to tell you the first 3 moves of the match in order. First move, Zema Ion went flying through the ropes with a dropkick. The second move, he hit an Asai moonsault from the turnbuckles to the floor. The third move, the guy who took these moves hit a Frankensteiner. Yep.
They just went back and forth.
That's a lot of moves.
They sold nothing. They flipped over everything. Just a waste of time. This match set wrestling back a good decade. Maybe
Literally,
more.
It did set wrestling back a decade.
It was astounding to watch. So yeah, Neese won. Madison said she had a huge announcement to make backstage. The announcement was that Karen, on her way out the door, made Madison the new vice president of the Knockouts division. So Sting fired Karen, but he was still nice enough to let her name her own replacement.
Well, I am not sure that's the case. We never heard from Sting. He was busy preparing for his match.
Or he just doesn't care.
Which is also likely.
Either way. Pope was cutting a promo, talking about how he was Devon's big brother and father, called himself a father to the fatherless, a husband to the husbandless, and his message basically was that if Pope is better than you, then you need to make yourself better. So what happened was Devon ran in to confront him, and before he could hit him, Devon's kids hit him with a chair from behind. That would be fine. But Devon ran in to confront him. Pope cowered in fear and stuttered and stammered and tried to talk his way out of it. And Devon talked smack for like 2 minutes. This went on for way too long before his sons arrived to hit him with a
This
chair.
was 2 weeks worth of angles in one segment.
Yeah. Eric Young and ODB went on a date. I didn't hate this at first, but then Eric Young went through his gimmick of trying to lock up with the waiter, and the waiter acted badly. This was stupid. Oh my God, the next one. All right. Madison calls out Tara and Tessmacher. First of all, Madison's promos. Nails on a chalkboard. All the way through. Yeah. Just screaming, shrieking, shrill, annoying, grating. No fucking buys.
This was classic Russo.
Yes.
In the sense of not having any understanding of what good heat and turn the channel heat is. And this was turn the channel heat.
This is not good. Anyway. So, Madison booked Tara and Tessmacher against each other.
Because they're a team.
Right.
TNT.
She doesn't like
which I never even heard about till this week, but I'll take their word for it.
So, since she booked them against each other, and they couldn't just, neither of them could lie down, they had a fake match several times. Then they proceeded to just roll around exchanging pinfalls for a minute, laughing the entire time. To which Mike Tenay, the play-by-play commentator, said, "What the hell are we watching here?"
Let me explain this in a little more detail.
All right.
So, Madison said, "You guys are going to wrestle each other, or you're fired." So, they proceeded to have a fake match, which was bad. So, Madison said, "You guys wrestle, or you're fired." So, they proceeded to real fake wrestle for a little while. And then it broke down in all these wacky cradles, and they started laughing, and it became a fake match. So did they get fired? No. Madison said, "No, seriously this time, you guys need to wrestle or I'm going to fire you." So they did some lockups, and they backed into the corner. And Madison decided to make them fight by trying to convince them that the other was cheating.
Right.
So, for example, when Tessmacher had Tara backed into a corner, Madison went behind Tessmacher and slapped her in the back of the head, and Madison blamed this on Tara. And even though Tara was in front of Tessmacher, and Tessmacher had been hit in the back of the head, and Madison is a heel, Tessmacher believed her. So, you had a fake match that became a fake real match that became a fake real match where the heel referee convinced the babyface that
the woman in front of her had hit her in the back of the head.
Yes. That she was looking at and had been locked up with.
Yes.
So you had stupid baby faces having a horrible match that nobody cared about. Crowd absolutely dead for this debacle. So finally,
it went on and on and on.
It went on and on and on and on and on for like 10 minutes. And finally, the two baby faces are face to face, yelling at each other, and Madison gets between them and screams, "Hit someone!" So, of course, the baby faces hit Madison! And she bumps outside, and the baby faces hug, and now they're friends, and everybody in the world with more than a single brain cell thought, well, aren't they fired now? But the answer is no. Madison just left. This segment sucked.
They hit the ref, who was also the boss of the division. The ref took a bump, and then their music played.
Yes.
And that was the end of the segment. I really legitimately think, and there's only a week left in this year, I really legitimately think this is the worst match I saw in 2011.
I think there's a very good possibility of that.
Nothing is coming to mind as even a close to a candidate.
This was not the barbed wire Christmas tree from that Impact many years back.
No.
But this is way up there.
This is not Charmel and Survivor Girl.
No, but you know what?
That was worse. But
every single solitary moment of this match sucked.
Yes.
That's astonishing.
This is a match that, if it had at its best, would have been a disaster, and it was not at its best.
No. A terrible...
It was booked to fail and was still...
horrible very bad, god-awful, offensive, and horrifyingly bad.
There was no hope for it to be any good, and it's still disappointed.
Yes.
Sting and Jeff Hardy were backstage. Sting is still wearing, well, he has not been wearing face paint since he's been a GM-type character. He was wrestling this week, so he had the face paint back on. It was the Joker face paint, which distressed me. But then when he cut a promo, he was a perfectly sane, rational human being.
Yeah.
That made me happy.
Well, except for the part they talked about how they were marks for each other.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should not have said perfectly. He was not Joker Sting cutting a goofy, giggly promo.
That's true.
He talked about how much he admired Hardy and how much it meant to him that Hardy said that he got into the business because of Sting and how much he was looking forward to team with this man and how he believed in second chances. This is a great promo by Sting.
Sure. I was still reeling from the prior segment.
That's totally reasonable. James Storm came out, said if Kurt was looking for him, he was either in the ring or at the bar. I was trying to figure out why Cowboy James Storm was dressed without a cowboy hat and wearing a blazer. Like he was dressed up. So he made a Tebow reference. They were in Orlando. Everyone cheered. And then footage of Kurt Angle in a bar appeared.
You know, Dave Meltzer is a special guy because...
Well, there's many reasons.
How can I explain this? Even though Dave knows better 99% of the time, he always leaves open benefit of doubt.
All right.
So, for example, we were talking about this set of tapings, and we were talking about how Kurt Angle was going to go to James Storm's hometown and start beating dudes until James Storm accepted his challenge, or whatever the storyline is. And I said, oh my God, this is going to be so great. I said, they did this with Gunner. Gunner did this in a gym, and it was awesome. Kurt Angle is going to do this. There is no possible way that this could not be great. And Dave, the machine, goes, well, I mean, they could screw it up.
Well,
and I was like, Dave, seriously, don't be a fool. How could they possibly screw up Kurt Angle going to James Storm's hometown and beating on dudes? It's impossible to screw up. Well, that's why
Dave
why Dave is Dave Meltzer.
He is the best.
He gave it the benefit of the doubt, and in fact, the benefit of the doubt, well, Kurt Angle was dressed as a cowboy. And I don't even mean like a real cowboy.
No.
I mean, he went to the cowboy store.
Yeah.
And he got a fake gun belt.
And
a fake gun.
A cowboy hat that was too small for his head.
Fake artillery clip. It was just, he looked like an idiot.
Yeah.
And he was in a bar, and he did some bad skits, and he ended up beating up some dudes, like straight out of a bad Western.
It looked like if you've ever seen the Universal Studios Stuntman Tour.
Oh, my God. A breakaway table.
Pool cues, breakaway beer bottle.
This was just...
a fake gun.
Absolutely god-awful. They managed... I mean, I can't even, for the life of me... I mean, you cannot convince me. I don't care. I refuse. There's no way that you can tell me that the same person that wrote those shows a couple of weeks ago and wrote that skit with Gunner in the gym, you cannot tell me that the same man wrote this.
Impossible.
It is absolutely impossible. This was astonishingly bad. Like, I cannot even believe what I saw on my television. Like, I feel like I woke up from a dream and a nightmare, some horrible nightmare where Kurt Angle dressed as a cowboy, a fake cowboy,
had a fake fight.
I nearly died. I nearly choked on myself right
recapping
there.
This segment.
I did. I literally gagged recapping this.
And then at the end, he lined geeks up on bar stools. They all sat up, even though they had been beaten up. And then he threw the 5 worst super kicks of all time at them.
This was horrible.
This was a goddamn awful segment that I was looking so forward to.
Yes, they turned what should have been the easiest segment in the world into horrible comedy, which took a feud that, like, 2 weeks ago. Remember that awesome promo that James Storm cut on Kurt Angle?
I think it was last week, wasn't it?
It was 2 weeks ago. It was before the pay-per-view.
Okay.
The deadly serious promo of James Storm and Kurt Angle stared a hole of death into him. And now, here we are 2 weeks later, and it's a cartoon. This right here should have won most disgusting promotional tactic. I've never seen anything so Oh, this sucks.
My notes here simply read...
I'd rather watch the barbed wire Christmas tree match again than this.
Yes, that was funny. We laughed at that. My notes here simply read, this is a letdown. Indeed.
I'll say.
Shannon Moore was walking backstage. And again, random tag team. He's teaming with Anarchia.
What a shocker.
The guy he's been feuding with for months.
Actually, the funny thing on the show, one funny thing that Eric Young did was he alerted ODB that they were facing Antarctica. I did think that was funny.
I actually didn't even get that until now. He was talking about Anarchia. He also mentioned some guy with tattoos, he must be tough. So Shannon Moore said he was not happy about teaming with Anarchia. He was not happy about fighting a woman, but he was going to do what he does best.
Tattoo work?
Drive his friends around so they don't get into jail. So we had Eric Young and ODB versus Shannon Moore and Anarchia. Eric Young's gimmick is the worst I've ever seen.
Actually, somebody on our board noted Shannon Moore is the most level-headed of that crew.
Yeah. It's not close.
It is not close, by far.
He's the only respectable man.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think it's recent history. I think he has a clean record, as far as we know.
I think so. I'd have to go back and look. But
anyway. So this match blew. As noted, Eric Young's gimmick where he wants to do lockups with everyone. It's awful. At some point here, ODB got body slammed. This pissed Shannon Moore off. And the guy who said that tonight he was going to do what he did best left. I guess what he does best is quit. So this left Anarchia 2-on-1. They hit a nut shot on him and they pinned him. Eric Young and ODB advance in the Tag Team Championship tournament. Mm-hmm. From there, we transition to Matt Morgan and Crimson saying they are not afraid of whoever wins the tournament. No shit.
Yep.
I don't blame you. Here's where we actually had the Kurt Angle Universal Studios fight. Sucked. And then we had the main event. Robert Roode and Bully Ray versus Sting and Jeff Hardy.
This was good.
Sting busted out a Pescado. Impressive. And they had a good tornado-style, I was going to say hardcore, but it was not that dangerous. But they had crowd brawling. They used all kinds of props. There were trash can lids to the head and choking with cables and all that kind of stuff. Sting, at one point, he had a top rope superplex on Bully Ray, which may sound mildly impressive. Bully Ray, at the time the Sting hit this, was standing on the middle rope inside the ropes. I have no idea how they pulled this off. I've done superplexes. This is not how you do it. But Sting can. So
an amazing man.
It was. You would think we would stop being amazed by him after 25 years, but no, he can still wow us. And by the way, it's Bully Ray. He's huge. So they had this match, and I did not note the finish, but the Hardy put Roode through a table with a splash and pinned him. So that makes sense because Hardy is challenging at the pay-per-view. This segment was totally fine.
It's like the only good thing. This literally was the only good thing on the show.
And you know why? Bully Ray.
Yeah.
He's the common thread in everything on the show that did not suck.
Well, Sting. Nothing Sting did on this show sucked.
I guess that's true, too.
So, yeah, Sting and Bully Ray.
Great men.
And, there's some others that were. Overall, though, a horrible step backwards.
Very, very, yes.
A horrible, deep, resounding step backwards this show was. It absolutely sucked.
Well, speaking of heavenly things, Tara's outfit just had a boob window. There they were. Mm-hmm. So Madison explained that if they had not followed her instructions last week, she was going to fire them.
Were they titted windows?
Oh, I see what you did there. Quite a pun.
I'm on a roll tonight.
Very clever. She explained that if they did not follow her instructions, she was going to fire them, and they had not followed her instructions, and so indeed, she fired them. As soon as she did this, Sting came out. He explained that no matter what Karen said, Madison was not actually in charge, he was. She screamed at him as he is wont to do. He screamed back at her face, making fun of her. The crowd thought this was really funny. And finally, Sting announced that he was booking Gail Kim defending her title against Mickie James tonight on the show. got a bit backstage thing where Steiner and Abyss agreed to be a team.
You know what's sad? First off, Russo's back in full effect.
That's clear.
That's clear. It's funny because, like, Scott Steiner and Abyss have a meeting, and they're of course they're an Incredible Partners team for this Incredible Partners.
A random draw tournament just happened to put these hated rivals together.
Yeah. So they're backstage, and first off, by the way, Madison screeching in that opening segment, unacceptable. And I hereby command TNA to never have her screech again. Second,
I concur.
At the beginning of the Abyss Steiner promo, you could actually hear Madison still screeching in the background, and they were backstage. Infuriating. But anyway, so they're a team,
right?
And Steiner's saying, we gotta do this tonight. And Abyss says, "Listen, we're a team." Scott's kind of taken aback, and he says, "Yeah, and we're the best team." And they had a pleasant meeting.
Well, and keep in mind,
liked both men when it was over.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I wanted to get behind them.
Keep in mind, this was not their first tournament match.
Second.
This was their second tournament match. In the first one, they did get along fine. They did put their differences aside to work together. That's a compelling story.
Yeah. This was going along great at this point. Then we had the match.
A few minutes later, it was Abyss and Steiner versus AJ and Kazarian, who in a completely random blind draw, the best friends happened to be a team.
And they merged their music together, which, what was that thing on, like, was it Conan? If they mated?
If they mated?
Yeah, and you get, like, one person's, like, they'd get my face and your face, and they'd put them together, and it'd be a monstrosity.
Yes.
That's their music, AJ and Kazarian. That's what they did here.
I'm so happy I was actively choosing to distract myself with other noise. Because I didn't even know why. I didn't think to myself, hey, they merged AJ and Kazarian's music. I could just hear something in the background of the show and realized I don't know what to hear this. And I focused on whatever your wife was saying or the cat, or I made some noise. I typed loudly to drown it out. For subconscious reasons, I made a conscious decision to ignore the noise. So they're having a match. AJ and Kazarian versus Abyss and Steiner. It's a perfectly fine TV tag match. Kazarian got a hot tag. He ran wild, but Abyss cut him off. He killed Kazarian. He killed AJ for good measure. So the baby faces have been taking out. Kazarian's ripe for the picking. And when they did this in the opener, Abyss calmly tagged in Scott Steiner and gave him the win as a sign of unity. So he has the men laid out. He turns to Steiner. He tags Steiner in. And then Steiner yells at him a little bit. And so Abyss grabs him and hits him with the black hole slam. He puts Kazarian on top of him. And Kazarian and AJ win. Two things, at least. If Abyss hates Steiner so much that he was going to turn on him and cost him a match, why didn't he do it last week? What changed?
Well, they needed a swerve.
Wow.
I'm just telling you.
2, in this tournament, which I remind you is to determine a new set of challenges for the World Tag Team Champions. We now have, I believe, in the finals, AJ and Kazarian, who really are the only natural team in the entire field. The two guys who would work together and as two small guys flying around may actually have a fun match with Crimson and Morgan. They are now in the finals after being completely punked out, beaten down, emasculated, eviscerated, humiliated, and winning on a fluke. Way to go, TNA!
I'm also amused by the fact that after this match, Bully got in the ring.
Yes, there is more.
And he screamed at Abyss, and he explained, correctly by the way, we have done everything for you. We got you girls, which you can't get on your own. We helped you win matches. We did everything for you. And I thought to myself, he's right. Abyss, however, just wants to have a Monsters Ball match with Bully.
Well, I'll get to that. You're missing things left and right. This whole war with Abyss started. They kicked him out of Immortal. They put him through a table. He no-sold it, and Bubba Ray was terrified. He had never seen anyone do this before. He did not know how to react. His ultimate weapon had been nullified by the monster, and that he had nothing left to fire back with. He was scared. So their plan was to bring him back into Immortal, to coerce him and, seduce him back into Immortal. And so they did. And it worked, and they were all chummy for a week or two. Then, Bully Ray, who we've already established is terrified of Abyss, watched him without warning, without cause, without provocation. He turned on Scott Steiner and destroyed him and obliterated and left him lying. So Bully Ray, who was afraid of this man, then cut a promo in his face. Mm-hmm. An angry, defiant promo. Not being afraid at all. What happened?
I don't know. I honestly think they switched bookers like 2 weeks ago.
It seems that way.
And that makes most sense to me.
And the new booker had no respect for the booking that had been going on beforehand and no desire to follow up on it. May not have even seen it. So, after Ray cuts this promo on him and points out how they had done everything to be nice to him and he was still being an ass, Abyss said all he wanted was a match with Ray at Genesis, and if you beat me, I'll join Immortal again. I think we can safely say this is the worst stipulation in wrestling. The person,
way up there.
The person who, due to losing a match, is forced to join a faction against their will, and every time it happens, they end up just fucking up, because if you are drafted into an army, you're not going to fight well. It's true in real war. It's true in wrestling. So, yeah, it's awful. So, Ray accepted this challenge like a man. He was not afraid to fight the monster. And then Abyss, after the match had been accepted, said, oh, by the way, it's Monster's Ball. And now Ray was scared. So I guess
Bully Ray of ECW.
Bully Ray.
Oh, no. Weapons? My God.
Not a garbage match. Oh, God. Bully Ray, apparently, when he agreed to the terms of the match, this is a legally binding contract, even though he had been openly deceived and misinformed.
Yes.
I hated so much about this segment.
You missed nothing in this segment.
No. I bet I did. I bet there's something stupid here I did not see. This was awful. Sting and Kurt Angle had a meeting backstage. Sting was laughing about Angle's gimmick last week where he kicked a bunch of dudes in the face.
Somebody found it funny.
So he said since Angle likes to kick men in the face, he was going to book Angle against a kicker this week. Angle thought this was a great idea. He said, I'll face anyone in the X division, any two of them.
What a burial.
Burial of the entire division. Austin Aries, Kid Kash, Zima Ion, all of them. Angle wants to, well, he would kick your ass, but just a complete open burial here. Then Sting said, no, it's going to be someone else, someone who once busted you open with a kick. And anyone who's paid any attention to professional wrestling in the past 15 years thought he must be talking about Rob Van Dam. Indeed. Mm-hmm. Kurt was horrified. The gimmick was Kurt Angle did not want to work with Rob Van Dam because Rob was too stiff.
Yeah.
Oh, how I laughed. I laughed and laughed and laughed. So Kurt was pissed. Sting walked away. It was also an awful segment, but an amazing segment more than anything else.
Yes.
Flair cut a promo for Gunner, talking about how dangerous he was. How
I loved every moment of this.
Hurting people.
You had Ric Flair as the second for Gunner. You had Gunner as his young protege. And you had someone script Gunner to say, and I quote, I'm a killer, and I'm going to the top.
Yeah.
2011, everyone.
This happened.
This was great.
All right, we'll move on.
I'm a killer, and I'm going to the top.
He had Zima Ion versus Anthony Neese.
I like Flair and Gunner as a duo.
Absolutely.
I think they're great.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding here.
Gunner is an ass kicker and Flair is the guy talking shit for him?
Yeah.
That is pro wrestling goodness.
Yeah. It was great.
Zima Ion
was not great.
Zima Ion versus Anthony Neese in a pole match. Yes, a pole match.
Hey, the pole returns.
This seems familiar. I seem to recall someone having a fetish for poles on this show. This was...
Oh, really?
Yes.
I say that about you every week.
Yeah, but you're making a penis joke.
Oh, I'm not. I would never do such a thing.
This is poles.
Although Austin Aries did in this match.
I'm sure he did.
He said, and I quote, what did he say? I actually don't have the quote.
There was something in there about a greased pole.
He said something to the effect of, Ion had experience with poles. He's a fireman.
I thought he meant a stripper joke.
Oh.
Looking at his gear.
I see.
Yeah, it could have been a dick, whatever. Point being, you'll recall that this is the third in the best of three match.
I prefer worst of three.
Touche. Point being, it's their third match in which Neese has been pinned something like a half dozen times.
Yeah. Let me tell everybody the finish of this match. First off, at first I thought, this match is better than last week.
Well, it was.
Do you remember the beginning of last week's match when they just did three completely random moves without selling?
Yeah, that you just described the entire match, but yes.
All right. The ending of this match, I swear to God, the end of this match saw Zema Ion climbing the turnbuckles, and he gets to the top rope. Actually, Neese had climbed first, and Ion shook the ropes and crotched him. So Neese is sitting on the top rope facing the pole. Ion starts climbing, and he climbs over Neese to start shimmying up the pole. Neese stops him. He grabs him from behind, and he does a deal where you do a German suplex as you're sitting on the top rope, and you end up in the Tree of Woe.
Mm-hmm.
So he Tree of Woe Germans Zema Ion, who lands on his head and neck.
Mm-hmm.
The very next move is Ion, who just landed, as I noted, on his head and neck. He pushes Neese off the top, sending him onto the guardrail, and then he climbs up and gets the contract. This had to have been the worst three-match series in wrestling history. It just had to be.
It was very bad.
Who came up with the idea of a finish where I'll go to climb, you give me a German off the top rope, I'll land on my head and neck, and then I'll get right up and throw you off the top rope and climb up and get the contract. And the other guy apparently said, okay.
I don't know what to tell you, dude.
I know what to tell you.
Yes?
Go back to being a fireman.
Yeah.
Or whatever pole-related activity you were involved in.
I also like
this was no good.
I also like the opening of the match, which was one guy tried to climb the ropes, the other one would pull him off and the guy would take a bump, and then they would just switch places. And they did this like a half dozen times.
Why would you take a German suplex off the top rope? Why would you do that if the very next thing was you're just going to throw the guy off the top rope and win?
Well, because you don't know anything about wrestling.
Why didn't you just crotch the guy and then go up and get the contract?
I don't know.
You'd both look less stupid.
I don't know.
I was astonished by this finish. Completely astonished.
It was...
I think the storyline, which makes it even worse for Tony Neese, I think the idea was he did the German off the top, but he ended up in the Tree of Woe and was stuck. So I guess his stomach was too weak to pull himself back up, and by the time he did, Zema was able to get up and shove him off. Tony Neese looked like below the level of the worst jobber in this series.
It was pretty amazing because Ion takes this big, giant, scary superplex onto his head, and then Neese kind of sort of starts to climb, and it takes him a while. And then Ion is up walking around, and he shoves him off from the guardrail. It's the exact same bump that RVD has gotten the heat with in all of his matches since 2001. It killed him.
Yeah.
It rendered him crippled. He could not function. And Ion, who had just fallen on his head, this pole, by the way, you could not reach the contract standing on the top rope. You legitimately had to climb a pole to get it. And he did.
He did. He shimmied his way up.
Zema Ion is unbreakable.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling sucks.
Well, this did.
He had Douglas Williams versus Gunner. Christy Hemme, by the way, was doing the ring announcing, and she apparently had gone to the what the hell's it called? The dollar party store for the generic New Year's Eve paper top hat. Mm-hmm. So they wrestled.
I picture them saying, Christy, we want you to do a New Year's outfit for the ring announcing. And she said, okay. And they said, you got to buy it yourself.
Yeah.
So she went to the dollar store.
Either that, or they just gave her $50 and then she went in the dollar store and kept the change.
That could also be. But I don't think they gave her $50. That's
I suspect they told her to buy her own stuff. That would be par for the course. So they wrestled for perhaps a minute. Gunner threw the ref down for no reason. He hit a DDT in the cement. Another guy allegedly taken out in an ambulance. They actually didn't show that.
Of course not. He got DDT'd on exposed cement, and they immediately cut away.
Yeah. Even though the gimmick of this is that he has been sending men away in ambulances. That's the whole point.
Because they had to get all of that Zima Ion pole match on the air.
We had to get all of Zima Ion's pole. Bobby Roode came down for a promo. He talked about... They replayed...
And they also had to get all of this on the air.
Yeah. They replayed some of the video of his friends and family talking about how they were disappointed in him. He said he had been disturbed by what one of his friends had said. He had spent his own money to fly that friend into the impact zone.
Can I talk about this for a second?
Yes.
I just got to talk about
what we're here
this.
for.
I know. I got to recap this segment. Then you can tell me if there's anything I missed. I thought this segment was phenomenally stupid. I thought Bobby Roode did a good job. And Tracy Koleski, who was his friend in the videos that was appalled at how selfish Roode had become. I thought he did a fine job, all things considered. However, Roode is the heel, right?
Yeah.
He did everything he could in introducing Tracy Koleski to make sure this man was booed. So this poor fella comes out, and amazingly the fans still got behind him, which was astonishing to me. But hey, more power to him. He then proceeds to cut a promo, and the storyline is that as soon as Bobby Roode won the championship, he's vanished. He doesn't go home to his wife. He has not seen his children. He has not talked to his mother and father. Remember when, like, Russo always did those interviews about how there's no such thing as black and white, it's all shades of gray? Could you possibly have a more black and white, preposterous heel character than this?
He could have a handlebar mustache.
And tie people to the railroad tracks.
Yes, exactly.
He turned heel, and now he doesn't go home, talk to his wife, see his children, call his mother and father. Where is he at? What is he doing? Like, this is beyond ridiculous. So then he attacks this poor fella, and Jeff Hardy runs down to make the save. I just thought this segment was, like, idiotic. I just thought it was idiotic.
I did think when he... the crowd was just, Roode was out there talking in the beginning, and they were booing whatever he would say, the really bad parts about them or whatever. And he said he had this friend here. He said his friend was an athlete, in fact, a professional lacrosse player. And at the words, professional lacrosse, the crowd cheered and applauded. Better than Impact! Yay! So, Bobby Roode has apparently abandoned his family.
Not to mention, his buddy goes, you haven't been around. I've had to drive your kids to soccer practice or lacrosse or hockey practice or whatever. And, Bobby Roode is now he's abandoned his family.
Yeah.
He's abandoned his family. He hasn't been around for 2 months, and the kids have to be taken to lacrosse practice. So he's a horrible person having abandoned his family. But then Roode's like, don't you ever talk about my kids again. It's like, well, do you care about the kids or not? Because this is... I don't get it. I'm sure somebody's going to defend this and go, oh, this is great.
Someone will go, this is what my dad actually did. And that's how they actually talk.
Oh, really?
Does not mean it's good TV.
No, this was lame. This was a segment where when it was over, I didn't believe in the Bobby Roode character at all. Like, at all. Austin Aries. Austin Aries, you can believe, okay, this guy's a prick. Okay?
Yes.
When the cameras are off, this guy is a prick. I don't know if he is or not. I've been around Austin Aries after shows when he's trying to get to his car and fans are following him, and he sure does act like a prick. But he may just he's in character.
Sure.
He may just be in character all the time. But the point of the matter is, I can believe without any problem whatsoever that Austin Aries is a prick. I don't believe that with Bobby Roode, because this storyline is preposterous. I don't believe that Bobby Roode has lost contact with his family.
You should hit the save button. The lights just flickered.
How's the air coming on? It's one thing when you just say, I'm really selfish and all the promos he cut immediately afterwards, and his family's all upset and everything like that, and he's talking about how he's selfish and everything. Like, great. That's all at least believable. But now that you're talking about, I haven't seen my family, I haven't seen my kids, wasn't he just talking about how all this stuff was putting food on the table? Somebody's just mailing them checks, but he's not actually seeing them? It's just ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous.
Speaking of ridiculous, we had Eric Young and ODB bullshit. All I will say is that I still hate them less than I hated Truth and Morrison.
Wow.
Yeah. Angle cut a promo backstage whining about having to wrestle Rob Van Dam. ODB and Eric Young versus Samoa Joe and Magnus.
An amazing match.
I don't know if Joe in real life has just given up, or if he was in character here. It fit both.
I fully believe this was method acting by Samoa Joe.
That he was merely revealing his own true feelings.
Joe was on the apron as Eric Young and ODB are in the ring. She's grabbing her boobs. He's tripping down to his skivvies. They're doing face and titty spots with Magnus. And Joe's just on the apron, and he has a look on his face that you cannot interpret it any other way than him thinking, my God, my career has come to this.
Yes. He was so embarrassed to be a part of this segment.
Yeah.
Even before there was too much shenanigans, just as they were standing in the corner and Eric Young and ODB made their entrance, they cut into the ring, and Joe, and this may not sound like much, but Joe was using his thumb to scratch his eyebrow and standing there staring at them, doing a prolonged scratch. And you had to see this to get the complete surrender and indifference to what was going on. And then the match began, and yes, ODB used her breasts as weapons, and not metaphorically, as physical tools of pain causing. And Joe was on the apron, shrugging, trying not to look. Amazingly,
he won this match. He pinned Young with the Muscle Buster.
Yeah, it was just astounding. I would say it is worth going out of your way to watch this, just to watch Samoa Joe throughout this match.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe wants out of wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Out of TNA.
Samoa Joe, I believe they once said he's in real estate or accounting or something. Joe wants to go back to that. Maybe dancing with his family again. Anything. Just he cannot do this anymore. This was the low point of Samoa Joe's life, maybe. Certainly his professional career. He has bottomed out. And one more thing about this. Eric Young has a gimmick where he wants to lock up with people who are not wrestlers, fans, referees, women, Mike Tenay. We just watched Kurt Hennig and Nick Bockwinkel on Tuesday. Eric Young's lockup is horrendous. It's not even that he's good at it and he wants to show it off. No. He wants to do his shitty lockup with everyone.
Well, it's hard to do a lockup if the other person doesn't know what they're doing.
Sure. I hate this gimmick.
We had the Direct Auto Insurance promo where Bobby Roode, the heavyweight champion of the earth, talks about how he let his policy lapse.
Yes.
I'm not making this up. This is a real, honest-to-God commercial.
Yeah.
And there's another one where Kurt Angle, Olympic champion, 12-time champion or whatever he calls himself. Global superstar is excited that he saved $600 a year on his auto insurance.
Yes.
Can you imagine if,
so rinky-dink.
Randy Orton explained how he let his policy lapse?
Forget Randy Orton. Think about Moondog Moretti on Portland Wrestling.
Not in a million years.
No. Ever, ever, ever.
No. In fact, Portland Wrestling, I had a valet that was named after a place that sponsored us.
Yes. They paid you.
They paid. It was rent to own auto.
Yes.
So they gave me cars in storyline.
And a woman.
I didn't have to buy them or save money on my auto insurance. Idiocy.
Yes.
And then,
oh God,
you must watch Impact to see this interview.
This is a must-watch Impact. I've decided on review.
Mickie James did a promo And I think this was a promo where she realized very early on that it sucked, and so she got all flustered. But I guess she didn't have it in her to just say, let's tape it again. And the cameraman just kept rolling, so she just kept trying. She said Gail would distort to any tactics to try to win, or try to retain, she corrected herself, the women's title. And it kept going. And going, and going, and going, and going, and going. And I thought, good God almighty, this could not be retaped.
This show is not live.
You could not do a second take.
No one said, wait a minute, what are we doing? Let's go back.
This interview had to be seen to be believed.
She'll distort to any tactics.
I was just amazed by this promo. This was absolutely amazing television.
Dave had a lot to say about Ring of Honor's production values lately. Ring of Honor's never done nothing this bad.
No.
I don't care how... If their show's recorded in Super 8, it's better than this promo.
You know, it's funny you mention that. When I used to do the student films, we had to do the Seattle Film Institute was always having to do these films, and so the beginning of the term, the people would have to make films on like a digital tape or just a
camcorder,
not even a tape, but just like it was recorded digitally.
I see.
So you tape it, you don't like it, and tape it over. So, but at the end of the session, they had to do one on 8mm, Super 8, and then at the end they had to do one on, I guess it was like 24mm. I forget what exactly it is, but color film, 64mm. Anyway, the point is this stuff is expensive, and they're given like, I don't know, 2 reels. And if they happen to use more than 2 reels, they have to buy extra reels out of their own pocket. And these reels are ungodly expensive. So essentially, at the beginning, if you worked on a project and it was shot digitally, then they just have you shoot a scene 80 times if need be. It was essentially free. Maybe you had to buy those little tapes, but it was not a big deal. The end of the deal, it was like, okay, we're going to rehearse this 1,000 times, and you get 1 take. And you can't screw it up. Because the film was so expensive, okay? That's not the case on iMPACT. They're shooting, as you noted, on film. They're shooting this stuff digitally. They could shoot this 1,000,000 times for $0. But no! Apparently, they needed to get this one in the can. Fast. This sucked.
Kurt Angle wrestled Rob Van Dam. It was a match. It was a star-and-a-half match if ever you saw one. Finish was Kurt put the ankle lock on when James Storm ran down and kicked him in the face with a DQ.
Yep.
That's fine. I had no problem with the finish itself. It makes sense because James Storm hates this fucker and wants to kick him in the face. I was a little annoyed at the time because Rob Van Dam disappeared. And they made it seem as if he was indifferent to the fact that James Storm cost him this match. That pissed me off. But, to their credit, after commercial, they came back, and the first thing we saw was a promo from Rob Van Dam bitching at James Storm for interfering when he was not wanted and costing him a match. Thumbs up, TNA. You had something that made sense, and the guy cared about winning and losing.
Good.
Amazing. So,
amazing that that's amazing.
Yes. It is a lost art here in the eve of 2012. So, Angle and Storm also cut promos to each other, so presumably this will lead to a 3-way. Presumably. And then we had a main event. Gail Kim versus Mickie James in a really good match.
It's a very good match.
It was a very good match. They can wrestle when you just let them, and they're good at it. Gail Kim did use a hold that the announcers, Tessmacher, they both call it the octopus. I'm almost positive it was not. But regardless, she used this a couple of times, and Mickie fought back, and she's making her comeback and running wild, and Gail runs up out of the ring, and the ref is distracted by her when a mystery woman runs in.
A witch! Literally, she was painted up like a witch.
She was painted up like Jeff Hardy.
Is that what it was?
We'll get to this.
I, for the life of me, couldn't figure this out because, like, she hit the ring and she was painted up with crazy green face paint, and she literally looked like a witch.
I thought it was a mask, an elaborate mask.
Yeah, that's how elaborate this face paint was. So she attacks Mickie behind the ref's back. Yeah. She goes and hides into the ring. Gail gets the pin, and I thought, I guess the gimmick is that, she hit Madison's finish, but you can't see her face, so you don't know if it's Madison or not.
That was what I was thinking as well, because clearly...
However...
I thought, seeing what we have just described, my thought was, what's going to happen is Mickie is going to think this interferer was Madison, whereas in fact it will have been a babyface, either Tara or Tessmacher or somebody.
Problem is that after the match, the witch just stuck her head out from under the apron with a big smile and gave a thumbs up.
Yep.
And it was Madison.
It was clearly Madison Rayne.
Which begs the question, why are you face painted up like a witch?
A great question.
Why didn't you just hit the ring behind the referee's back, do the deed,